You can even connect into some of our channels from other Matrix servers. It's federated. For the full LRN.FM Matrix experience, though, you should join our server via the step-by-step instructions at chat.lrn.fm. Chat.lrn.fm.
You're 6 minutes away from a live episode of Free Talk Live. Listen live at freetalklive.com.
Paying tribute to America's war dead. I'm Pam Huso, Fox News.
Remember those who gave their all in the service of America.
During a solemn Memorial Day ceremony at Arlington National Cemetery, President Biden laid a wreath at the tomb of the unknown soldier. He was joined by Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin.
We come together to remember and to renew our sense of common purpose and to reach out to those who have long mourned and to those who newly grieve.
After the ceremony, the president and the first lady walked along the burial ground. Tomorrow, the president heads to Oklahoma to commemorate 100 years since the Tulsa massacre. Today, hundreds gathered for an interfaith service in the city's Greenwood neighborhood, where a white mob attacked residents, homes, and businesses. Hundreds of people were killed.
So we're here to remember, to mourn, to rebuild equitably, and for people, we've heard about repairing the breach. The word repair is connected to reparations.
Congresswoman Lisa Blunt Rochester. The gunmen responsible for a pair of deadly shootings in South Florida are still at large. In one of the incidents, the suspect sprayed bullets at a crowd outside a banquet hall.
A total of 23 people were shot. 2 were deceased on scene. 3 are critically injured in the hospital today, clinging to life.
Major George Aguiar is with the Miami-Dade Homicide Bureau. Investigators believe the shooting on Sunday morning was the result of a rivalry between 2 groups. In Houston, 2 men were shot and killed at a busy nightclub early this morning. Police say the gunman may be among the dead. Police are reviewing surveillance footage. America's listening to Fox News. A man who may have tried to buy a little boy is wanted in New Jersey.
A man allegedly tried to buy a 2-year-old from his mom in a Morris County, New Jersey park last week, and now police are asking for the public's help with the suspect's identity or whereabouts. Authorities say the man repeatedly approached a woman at the park and made multiple attempts to purchase her son. Also, that before leaving the park, the suspect met up with 2 men, roughly 25 to 30 years old. There's a composite sketch out showing the suspect in his late 40s or 50s with a gold tooth in his mouth, wearing a white T-shirt and a black baseball cap with an RM logo. Lillian Wu, Fox News.
A vigil is being planned for an Alabama teenager who died this weekend when a car she was in plunged into a lake. The Birmingham News says Mariah Towns had just graduated from high school and was one of 4 people in the car who died. Police say it's unclear what caused the vehicle to veer off the road. A 5th passenger survived. As air travel in the U.S. begins to rebound, 2 U.S. carriers are suspending alcohol service because of unruly passengers.
Both American and Southwest Airlines say they will be flying dry flights for the time being following an incident on a Southwest flight where a belligerent passenger punched a flight attendant, knocking out her teeth. Video of the incident is widely available online. The airlines say the no booze policy could continue through the summer. The passenger in the video, 28-year-old Viviana Quinones, was arrested when the flight landed in San Diego. Assaulting airline crew is a federal offense. Evan Brown, Fox News.
In addition to flying, Americans are hitting the road again, and that's driving up the demand for gasoline and the price. Gas Buddy says the national average for regular unleaded is $3.04 a gallon. I'm Pam Huso, and this is Fox News.
Join liberty-minded voluntarists, anarchists, and libertarians from June 28th through July 4th for ForkFest 2021 at Rogers Campground in the beautiful White Mountains of New Hampshire. ForkFest happens the week after the Porcupine Freedom Festival, and ForkFest is decentralized, which means no one is in charge. That also means there's no ticket cost. Just reserve your camping, RV site, or motel room with Rogers Campground for June 28th through July 4th. Where better to celebrate Independence Day than around other freedom-loving activists in the Shire? You can relax and enjoy the camaraderie of like-minded people, or you can create whatever experience or event you'd like others to have. If you're planning an event for ForkFest, be sure to let others know in advance. You can connect with fellow ForkFesters via the unofficial Telegram chat or the ForkFest forum. Links to those are on the unofficial website, forkfest.party. Mark your calendar for June 28th through July 4th, 2021. We'll see you at forkfest.party.
According to locals waiting for a 66 bus in downtown Chicago last night, a young couple was making out in the passenger shelter like they were in Paris or something. Onlookers spoke to reporters about the pair, who carried on their passionate embrace for over 20 minutes, as if they were in some sort of goddamn candlelit bistro tucked away in Montmartre.
It's been almost a half an hour and they're still going at it. It's like they think they're sitting on a sun-dappled picnic blanket in the Tuileries Gardens. I mean, where the hell are we? The Champs-Élysées?
The pair's marathon makeout session, which took place in downtown Chicago and not, as frustrated onlookers emphasized, on a cobblestone street in the city of lights, featured intense gazing, deep tongue kissing, and other gestures of affection typically reserved for a couple strolling down the banks of the Seine River.
You know, for a second there, I honestly thought we had all been transported to Parc Monceau, drinking flutes of champagne on a wonderful summer afternoon while being serenaded by a Parisian accordion player. But no, we're at a bus stop in Chicago.
This is the Onion News Network.
Free Talk Live.
It's Free Talk Live, talk radio that you control. 603-283-6160. That's the phone line. You can take control of the airwaves and talk about whatever is on your mind. 603-283-6160. And with you from the Omnusias studio tonight, it's Aria,
Joa, and Peakless Mountaineer.
And man, it is weird to be doing this from here.
Don't you know everyone works from home because of the virus?
Well, that's not the reason that I'm working from home.
No, the virus you are working from home from is government.
That's correct. Due to the terms of Ian's release and my own release, in fact, Ian and I are not allowed to have contact. And with him under house arrest and the LRN studio, or the Free Talk Live studio, being at his house, it created some interesting challenges about how exactly Free Talk Live was going to continue. And the prosecutors and the parole office, they don't really seem to care about that, despite the fact that, the terms of my release require me to maintain employment. Yet, I can't go to my place of work, and I can't talk to my employer. So, what do?
We require you to do the thing that will only be acceptable if you do not do it.
Yes, it's very strange. It's like I do have the other job that I do, right? But that doesn't mean that I don't have Free Talk Live, which I've been doing for the better part of 2 years.
Right.
So it is my job.
Right.
And at the moment, managing LRN is my job because Ian isn't allowed to, touch a computer.
And an absolutely crucial job at that. I mean, we wouldn't have been able to get this stuff back online when they started jerking wires out if you hadn't given a hand to that.
Well, it looks like you did a great job at setting up the studio here with these lights and.
Thank you. I like it. The LEDs are going to have to go, though. I wasn't sure how they were going to actually
I agree.
Play, but yeah, I can flip a switch to make that go away.
I do feel like I am much more rock, but it is kind of making me twitchy. Nice.
Well, no, that didn't fix it. I need one of you to talk for a second while I disable it.
Well, it's a fortunate thing that we have this secondary studio because, it wasn't enough that you're not allowed to talk to him. He also is not allowed to talk to you. We have to double up on this, and then they're not allowed to talk to them, and they're not allowed to talk to them, and heaven forbid someone talks to you and then says a thing that you told to them to the other person.
Right. Yes, there's no third party, no intermediaries, none of that stuff. None of that is allowed.
Yeah.
So somehow, we had to figure out a way without communicating with each other to make this happen. That's a monumental task. If Ian and I didn't have a pretty good idea of being able to figure out what the other person was attempting to do, we would be screwed. Like, I was in the process of adding Adam Kokesh's show, Adam versus the Man, into the podcast rotator for LRN.FM.
Oh, great.
That's the stuff that, is broadcast over satellite to sub-Saharan Africa and Asia.
Quick side note, is it me or does that man turn slightly more into Ra's al Ghul every time I see him? Don't get me wrong, I love Adam, he's awesome, but like seriously, he just becomes slightly more of a comic book character every time I look at him.
He's an interesting character for sure. I was actually on his show last week, and he and I had a discussion after that about, I assumed Adam vs. Man was already in the podcast rotator because he's been doing the show for such a long time. He's good friends with Ian, but maybe it used to be, and it broke. G. Potter did break recently, and it tried to, I don't know what it did, but the Fox News update that happens every top of the hour, it stopped updating, so we were running news that was like 2 weeks old, and when I went to fix that, I was able to fix it, but then it broke again just a few days later, and I finally managed to fix it doing the obvious thing of closing G. Potter and reopening it, which I should have done in the first place, but I didn't.
Yeah, I gotta say, like, it was the weirdest thing for me, like, after 69 days of being abducted and gently tortured, I am legally unable to tell Ian that you love and care about him. Like, I am not allowed to say that you miss him because that would be transmitting a message from you to him.
Well, it would be transmitting a message from me if I was the one who told you that. Now, if it was just known in general, it wouldn't be relaying a message for me because I've said that in the past. But yes.
Well, I've just got to take a note from the CIA and say, I can neither confirm nor deny that certain person or persons may in fact love, care about, and miss you.
And isn't that bizarre? I mean, the prosecutors are allowed to have contact with one another. The various FBI agencies and, the USPS and the IRS, they're all allowed to contact one another. It's almost like there is a conspiracy there of these interlocking agencies to take down Free Talk Live. Look what we've had to do.
I mean, it's not like people get charged with a conspiracy.
Well, we certainly have been.
Right.
But look at what we've had to do here just to keep Free Talk Live on the air.
Mm-hmm.
It's absolutely insane. We had to take a music studio that, by sheer coincidence, I already had all of the stuff here in order to do this, and convert it into a broadcast studio.
Well, I mean, this is really all of our fault. I mean, what we should have been doing was exclusively relying on YouTube, putting all of it on the Google Cloud, and making sure that Amazon had absolute ability to turn us off at any moment. And if we'd followed that protocol, then none of this would have happened.
Their objective is to control. That's what government is.
Yeah.
And if they're gaining a little bit of control over something, they feel good at the end of the day. And they can sleep at night, apparently.
Well, their efforts managed to create a second studio from which Free Talk Live can and will be produced and broadcast. So I don't know if that was the result they were going for, but it's what they achieved.
The tighter you close your grip, the more star systems will slip through your fingers. Or in this case, iterations of Free Talk Live.
Or you cut off the head of one Hydra and two more go in its place, which is what we have here, because it's not just here. There's a third studio that's essentially in development.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
And that's always been an anarchist trait. So one of the things that that statists will argue is like, well, you couldn't possibly defend this area without, monopolization by force of the defense protocol. But no, that's exactly opposite of what's true, because if you have a single state, like all you have to do is defeat that army, and job is done. Now, if you have an anarchist state, you have multiple layers of attack.
What is an anarchist state?
I mean that not in the government state, but like a state of anarchy.
Okay.
Like if you are in a circumstance of non-government, then you might defeat the army, and you still haven't taken over. Because there's going to be, there's going to be one level of defense that opposes you directly and violently. There's going to be another level of defense that opposes you indirectly. There's going to be another level of defense where they just slow down obeying your orders. And that's essentially what we're doing here, is we're having multiple layers of resistance to their attempt to destroy our free speech.
Yeah, and it seems to be working, at least as far as I know. Realistically, we're doing a show, so I can't chat. But for all I know, we're not broadcasting anything. We're just sitting here talking to each other. I don't know for sure that it's all going out on radio, but I assume that it is, and I have no reason to assume otherwise because,
Well, I mean, apart from the potential of cursing, isn't that really what we do anyway?
What's that? Sit around talking?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's a libertarian thing to do. I'll never forget last year when these college girls came to Fork Fest, or the Porcupine Freedom Festival. I don't remember exactly when they came, and they had like a set of 15 questions that they were going around asking people, and it was taking them hours to get through. They wanted to interview like 30 to 40 people, but it was taking hours because we're libertarians. If you ask us a question about the economy, we're going to give you a very long-winded answer.
Yeah, don't get me started.
Yeah.
Yeah, most questions, if you have a room of 10 libertarians, you will end up with 11 different answers.
You will, and then you will end up with 10 libertarians calling each other not libertarians.
Yeah, the only thing they can agree on is that they're the only libertarian in the room.
Yeah, and everyone else just thinks they're a libertarian. Anyway, what are your thoughts on all of this? How do you think Free Talk Live should adapt now that the state has essentially made it clear that it is targeting Free Talk Live by preventing, the owner and creator of the program from communicating with people he employs and from his business partner? 603-283-6160. Share your thoughts. 603-283-6160. This is Free Talk Live.
A newly recruited search and rescue officer, Marshall Hunter was resigned to a life of rescuing wayward spacefarers and derelict satellites. But when a billionaire couple goes missing, his own ship is disabled during the rescue. With communication satellites suddenly failing and lunar mineral shipments disappearing in transit, the crew suspects it's more than a coincidence, and Hunter must choose between salvation and sacrifice to save his crewmates and their civilian charges. Frontier by Patrick Childs and BingBooks.com.
Are you tired of governments murdering people around the world? Stop using their money. There is an alternative. Bitcoin is a stateless, free market, non-political currency. Bitcoin cannot be inflated or controlled by any government. By using their money, you are helping the state. Stop doing it. You have an incredible alternative available now. Learn it, use it, spread it. Get started with Bitcoin at bitcoin.com. That's bitcoin.com.
Some of you asked, and now we've delivered. LRN.FM's live Keene, New Hampshire studio shows are now streamed in HD on Twitch. Visit our channel at twitch.lrn.fm and give it a follow. If you have Amazon Prime, you get one free subscription on Twitch. If you use it on our channel, Twitch will give LRN.FM a monthly piece of your Prime subscription cost. So please watch, follow, share, and subscribe to twitch.lrn.fm. That's twitch.lrn.fm.
Do you feel like your nation, state, or community no longer holds your values? Have you dreamt of a place where people agree that liberty is important and are free to pursue their projects so long as they respect the property of others? There are many people just like you that are discovering freeprivatecities.com. Their social media links are at the upper right of the page at freeprivatecities.com. All skill levels will be needed when the first of the Free Private Cities opens. It's sooner than you think. Stop arguing and build. freeprivatecities.com.
Following the conclusion of yet another day marked by a litany of tedious and unavoidable realities, The Onion spoke with sociologist Dr. Timothy Coghill, who told reporters that the nation would be forced to go through all of it again tomorrow.
As our projections demonstrate, tomorrow, like today, every man, woman, and child in America will wake up and do it all again. All of it, including traffic, the workday, bad coffee, your kid's soccer game, laundry, a struggling economy.
Statistical evidence also showed that the nation would once again endure traumatic childhood memories, Twitter, anxiety, poverty, consumerism, rampant abuses of the legal system,
joint pain, racial inequality, global warming, the steady erosion of civil liberties, violence, loneliness, disease, unresolved intimacy issues, the ravages of age, hunger, sexual frustration, existential dread, the looming specter of death.
For more on this unending story, check this week's Onion Review.
This is the Onion News Network.
If you want to know the latest about Free Talk Live before we go on the air, all you need to decide is how you want it delivered. It's your choice. Visit news.freetalklive.com to receive our usually weekly news updates by email. Plus, we have a Twitter account at twitter.freetalklive.com, and you can follow us on the decentralized Mastodon platform at toot.freetalklive.com. toot.freetalklive.com. So please follow us at toot.freetalklive.com and sign up for our emails at news.freetalklive.com. Are you tired of governments murdering people around the world? Stop using their money. There is an alternative. Bitcoin is a stateless, free market, non-political currency. Bitcoin cannot be inflated or controlled by any government. By using their money, you're helping the state. Stop doing it. You have an incredible alternative available now. Learn it, use it, spread it. Get started with Bitcoin at bitcoin.com. That's bitcoin.com.
Do you appreciate what we do? Help us advertise, market, and promote for just $5 a month at amp.freetalklive.com.
It is Free Talk Live, talk radio that you control. 603-283-6160. You can call in and talk about whatever's on your mind. Join the discussion about the sudden need for Free Talk Live to have a second production studio because half of its co-hosts, I've got something playing in my headset. I freaking hate Fox News.
Well, then why did you put it on the whitelist?
Well, because it's the most obvious one, right? I didn't want to ask for, like, what is Alex Jones's website? Infowars or prisonplanet.tv because I was just going to... First of all, I don't use a lot of their news
for
sources.
the record, I just have to say, that is the most brilliant branding. I mean, Infowars and Prison Planet. I mean, just yes, that is exactly the problem that we're going up against. We are in an information war, and they are trying to turn the planet into a prison.
It's just too bad that the person who owns those websites is a raving lunatic.
I think he's been compromised. I think there was a time where he actually, was speaking.
Have you seen the video from January of 1999 then, where he was essentially claiming to be watching Russian aircraft invading U.S. airspace and Russian soldiers invading U.S. soil?
No.
He's like, this is happening right now. I'm watching it happen. The soldiers are shooting at each other. Like, he did this. So it's been his entire career.
So,
sure.
Well, here's what I really liked about Alex Jones, and he is hopefully not going to be the only one that does this format, but he would take different news articles that people would send him from different places and show here's the trend of what's happening. So, I mean, if you get one news article saying this is happening, it's easy to dismiss. But when you go, okay, here's a news article from this region, here's one from this region, here's one from this region, so that you can actually track a trend in a weird thing that is going on, I think that is just brilliant.
A lot of the pieces of news articles are scattered. So, because they're doing their own research and calling into, wherever an incident occurred or whatever, and they're getting information that might be slightly off from the other one. So it's good to do that. It's good to do your research deep into it, and I appreciate some of the things that Alex has done in that sense. But then he throws his, I call it conservative-leaning, Christian valuing, hardcore USA all the way.
1776.
Yeah, that was pretty good.
My favorite thing was the gay frogs thing. Yeah. And that's my favorite because he wasn't 100% wrong. The BBC has even talked about this. A lot of the birth control pills and stuff like that are getting flushed into the sewer systems, they are in fact making fish trans.
Right.
But whether or not the frogs are gay, I don't know. But we are making the fish trans by putting chemicals in the water.
Well, and that's the thing. So, like, if you had a nice, level-headed discussion about, well, we seem to be altering the hormonal structure of the wildlife in our aquatic environments, like... if, on the other hand, they're turning the frickin' frogs gay! Like, I mean,
yeah, that really works.
It makes you pay attention and go like, well, wait a second, that is actually a really weird thing to be going on in my world.
Well, it's definitely a weird thing to have someone yelling about. But the one they put to music where he's like singing about it is fantastic. Every time it pops up, I have to watch it because it's a masterpiece of Alex Jones. Now, have either of you seen Space Ghost Coast to Coast?
Mm-hmm.
there is a YouTube channel that takes Alex Jones and it puts it, like he's being interviewed by Space Ghost. And it's fantastic.
Oh, I'm gonna have to see that.
Well, every once in a while, I'll see Ron Paul on there, and I'm interested in the angle that Alex presents to Ron Paul. So sometimes I watch that. But that's the extent of my InfoWars, contributing.
Ron Paul goes on with Alex Jones?
Yeah.
Okay. I did not know that.
Hey, he's handy.
Sure.
I mean, they're both in Texas. They're both officially Republican, I think.
It's hard to consider Ron Paul to be a Republican, though. I mean, I know he's registered as one, but he was pretty much the most hardcore libertarian we ever had in office.
Well, and I mean, he was definitely sort of a right libertarian. I mean, he is very socially conservative himself. He just doesn't think that he should enforce his socially conservative values with, violence. Because the Constitution tells you not to.
Yeah, well, I would say if I didn't get involved in the Ron Paul campaigns, that I probably wouldn't be where I am today. And I learned a lot of principles off the bat, and because of that, I furthered my principles. And and now I'm hanging out here with Arya in the Free Talk Live Studios 2.0.
Well, and he was really good at pointing out that they have defrauded us to an extraordinary extent. I mean, it's one thing to not quite follow what you pretend the agreement is, because they pretend the agreement is the Constitution and then some other stuff.
Sure.
Which is all frighteningly complicated. But, I mean, it gets to the point where, his son, who I wish he was as libertarian as his father, but he is probably the best senator ever.
Rand?
But yeah, I mean, it's because it's such a low bar. But I mean,
I guess,
so Rand,
man, I do not have any respect for Rand Paul.
Well, I have something that is worthy of respect. He introduced a piece of legislation saying that no one is allowed to vote on a law until they have read it.
Oh, really? Downsize DC has been attempting to, James Babka, I think is his name, has been attempting to get that, voted on for a very long time. It's good to hear that, they're actually moving on that.
Sounds like it would take a very long time for them to actually pass a bill then, because these legislations that they come out with are stacks. That's I couldn't imagine. Why would you even vote on these things?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the tax code is 40,000 pages or something like that. The emergency stimulus bill that they put together back in December was, I don't remember the exact length of it, but it was just monumentally huge. And it contains stuff in there about funding Pakistani gender studies programs and stuff like that. In this COVID relief bill, not only should they have to read the legislation, but it's common sense that they should have to read it. I can't believe it takes a law to make that happen.
Well, and what's worse, they won't pass the law to do it. They outrightly refuse to even start to pass the law that requires them to read the bill that they are forcing down our throats with guns.
That's probably the only bill that they read. And then they're like, no, we don't want to pass this.
Well, one would hope that they actually read the bill that required them to actually read bills, but I don't put any level of stupidity past the politicians that, spend $250,000, that vote to spend $250,000 to teach Filipino hookers how to use condoms. That's the level of stupidity our government is at. And reckless spending. $250,000 on Filipino hookers learning to use condoms.
That was some sort of cover for some agency that went over to the Philippines, and now there's a problem. And
you would sure hope so, but with our government and the things they do spend money on, like the $30,000 in the COVID bill, I don't remember the exact amount, I think it was $30,000, for Pakistani gender programs, which presumably is actually for Pakistani gender programs. I wouldn't put it past them at all.
It's sick that they're trying to change a social issue with our tax dollars, if it is,
Yeah, in a country that is not the United States. Instead of, just letting people do their own thing, the U.S. government wants to attempt to run the world. But that's not surprising. It is the U.S. government.
Well, I'm sure someone's wetting their beak off of that program.
What are your thoughts? 603-283-6160. This is Free Talk Live.
Carl Watner, longtime proponent of a voluntary society, died last December. You may have seen his articles published on his website, voluntarist.com, in his newsletter, The Voluntarist, the Mises Institute, or elsewhere over the last 40 years. His newest book, I Must Speak Out, Volume 2, The Best of the Voluntarist, is now available via Liberty Under Attack Publications. This 430-page second volume spans the years of 2000 through 2020 and includes articles by Carl Watner, Hans Hermann Hoppe, Karl Hess, Benjamin Tucker, George H. Smith, Lysander Spooner, Pete Eyre, Joyce Brand, and many others. I Must Speak Out is for the newly initiated, the veteran voluntarist, or anywhere in between. Buy the book now at libertyunderattack.com/voluntarist. For more great content on building a voluntary society and for Carl's extensive archives, check out voluntarist.com.
Uncovering the secrets and exposing the lies. That's what the readers of freedomsphoenix.com get every day. freedomsphoenix.com, constantly providing the information, the real news about government policies, and the real relationship we all have with the coercive government. The real condition of the economy, innovations in technology, breakthroughs in energy, health, and computer science. Learn the truth well before it's admitted to in the lamestream media. The corporate media, nothing more than distributors of government propaganda, but now there's an alternative. freedomsphoenix.com. Constant news updates on the issues that affect your life in the most important ways. With liberty and property under constant attack, freedomsphoenix.com provides the understanding behind the propaganda, and it encourages the participation of its readers. Go to freedomsphoenix.com. That's freedoms with an S, phoenix.com. freedomsphoenix.com. The revolution between the ears has already happened.
So you've signed the Shire Society Declaration and are planning your move to New Hampshire to be around more liberty-oriented people. Next, sign up for the Shire Society Forum at forum.shiresociety.com. There are a bunch of people there who are already in the Shire, and they want to meet you. If you're already in the Shire physically, you should also come by the forums. Remember, not everyone uses Facebook. New people are signing up for the Shire Society Forum every month, so drop in and say hello at forum.shiresociety.com. The LRN.FM social media channels have been revamped. We've eliminated Facebook and focused on other platforms like Twitter and Mastodon, the decentralized alternative to Twitter. On our accounts, you'll find posts from multiple LRN.FM show hosts together in one place. Follow us on Twitter at twitter.lrn.fm, or better yet, move to the decentralized Mastodon social media platform at toot.lrn.fm, toot.lrn.fm. I think you'll like it. Why did you move to the Shire?
I moved here to the Shire because there's other people around who take liberty just as seriously as I do.
I moved to the Shire because I saw videos of people challenging authority and thought that I could get support myself. It called to me, like, do this, right now.
I wanted to be around people like me who got it, and once I got here, I knew there was nowhere else that I wanted to be.
I've always wanted to change the world, so I moved to the Shire to join people who were actually working towards doing the same thing.
The people here are awesome, loving, and positive. It was for the adventure and for the feeling of something important is happening here, and I just wanted to come to sort of be part of that.
Visit shiresociety.com to read and sign the Shire Society Declaration and learn the reasons why, if you love liberty, you should immigrate to the Shire. Plus, connect with others via the forum at shiresociety.com. That's shiresociety.com.
Our Matrix server is about as free as internet chat can be. Join the existing rooms or create your own at chat.freetalklive.com.
It is Free Talk Live, talk radio that you control. 603-283-6160 is the caller line. You're welcome to call in, take control of the airwaves, and talk about whatever's on your mind. 603-283-6160. With you in the studio tonight, it's Aria.
And Joa.
And Peakless Mountaineer.
And Peakless, you had something that you wanted to discuss. Something that you pulled up.
Oh, yes, indeedy. So, remember those days where we pretended that you were innocent until proven guilty? And obviously you were treated like you were guilty as soon as you were charged. No more! They have seen that to be unfit for government, and now you will be guilty as soon as they say so. So the DHS basically came out with pre-crime.
That sounds like the government.
And brace yourself, this is sort of weird combination of political speak and legal speak.
Can you pull your mic down or move closer to
Yeah.
it?
So from DHS.gov, DHS creates new Center for Prevention Programs and Partnerships, and additional efforts to comprehensively combat domestic violent extremism.
So this is right after they decide that libertarians are going to be lumped in as right-wing extremists and terrorists. Now they're talking about thought crime.
How convenient.
That sounds horrifying. But months after they said libertarians were a threat to national security. I don't remember exactly which talking head in the government said this, but one of them said it. And we talked about it on Free Talk Live at the time. Just months later,
yeah, what was it, Clapper?
Half of the Free Talk Live hosts were arrested by the FBI.
Mm-hmm.
They could be violent people, but we're going to use violence on them before they can maybe use violence. That's kind of what they're doing.
Well, we're pacifists. We're borderline pacifists.
I mean, so long as we are not aggressed against, we are certainly pacifists.
Well, and then there are some among us who go even further and would say that, well, the idea of non-aggression is great, and being able to defend yourself is a valid use of violence. Some would still, like Mark, would opt not to do that.
Really?
Well, he's a Quaker. I'm assuming he's a pacifist because Quakers tend to be. But Ian is certainly a
That's
pacifist.
racist. That's racist against Quakers.
Quakers aren't a race.
This is all based on
apparently Mexicans and Muslims are a race, so Quakers obviously have to be.
Okay. I don't know anyone who says that Muslims are a race.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh man, anytime that something is an anti-Muslim policy, it is always called racist.
Okay.
Well, it seems that most people conflate Arab with Muslim, which is kind of ironic given the fact that most Muslims aren't Arab.
It's a good point.
I mean, isn't Islam like the fastest growing religion in the world?
Probably. But yeah, the majority of them are Southeast Asian.
Fascinating.
Yeah.
So tell me more about this thought crime legislation, or this thought crime regulation, because the government doesn't really legislate anymore. They just create all of these other governmental agencies that are going to create law, and somehow they have decided that that's constitutional. Because they're the government and they're the ones who get to decide what is and isn't constitutional.
Well, it's a lot like when the pandemic came and, that's against the law. There's a law against that. No, we have 3 branches of government. Remember your social studies, kids.
Yes.
3 branches of government. One of them makes laws. A different one makes executive orders that oppress the crap out of us.
And the executive orders aren't supposed to be a thing in the first place. The executive branch was never supposed to be legislating, but sure enough, COVID happened, and I mean, the whole executive order thing, it began long before COVID, but it was generally just, when I heard executive order, I thought of, the president doing something, which was also unconstitutional, but it's been going on for a very long time. But now suddenly governors are getting in on the action.
Well, executive orders used to be, the sky's falling and you do emergency powers, but now they just do it left and right on just minor things now that they don't like. So we need to get this pushed through real fast.
Well, the sky is always falling. We're in a war on terror, don't you know?
Are we?
A war on terror,
now
a
it's
war
a
on
war on the
drugs.
invisible enemy. A war on COVID. We're fighting a virus, a force of nature, an ever-evolving virus.
Now remember, you can't tell if you have the invisible enemy. Only I can tell you if you have the invisible enemy. If you're having no symptoms whatsoever, you're just one of those carriers.
Well, now it's
asymptomatic.
Now it's we don't even. This hasn't even happened yet. It hasn't even existed yet, and we're going to charge you for it, or find you guilty.
Oh yeah, and a quick note, like asymptomatic has become a fear word. Do you know what asymptomatic means?
Not
healthy.
sick. Yes.
Right. Not sick. And they've turned not sick into a terrifying word. How did they do that?
Now, when I had COVID, I was symptomatic but not contagious, if that makes any sense whatsoever, because the symptoms I had were just fatigue and body aches, which obviously is not creating any sort of mucus that it can be transmitted to another person. Presumably I could have, I don't know, spit in someone's mouth and got them sick. I don't know. I wouldn't do that, but...
I don't know what you do on your weekends.
But presumably, I wasn't exhibiting any symptoms that would have increased the chances of spreading it, I suppose.
Right.
But, I had it, and I was largely asymptomatic, and literally no one in my vicinity got sick because of me.
That's impossible.
Well, it's because I washed my hands. This whole freaking thing could have been prevented if people just washed their hands. But no, we have this entire society of putting hand sanitizer. Even before COVID, there was hand sanitizer everywhere. I had to go to the DMV here in Keene before it was moved. That's how I know it was pre-COVID. I don't have to remember the timeline. It was the old DMV. And there was this bottle of hand sanitizer sitting there on the desk. And this guy who was sitting beside it, who every few minutes, almost like a nervous tick, he would reach over, squirt some into his hand, and rub it all in. It's like, okay, that's fine, but it would be far more effective if you just washed your hands.
That's a hell of a marketing technique they got going for him.
Yeah, he's just systematically over the last 15 to 20 years just been brainwashed to every time he sees hand sanitizer, oh, sanitize my hands. This started when I was at elementary school, where teachers, every student had to bring 2 bottles of hand sanitizer because it had to be there. And students didn't have to, but a lot of students always did, just walk by the teacher's desk and squirt some into their hands. It's like the bacteria and stuff that you're killing on your hands, it's probably not going to harm you, and it's probably helping you in the long run.
I can literally guarantee that if you are healthy, like if you're not experiencing a problem, then at least 80% of the bacteria on your skin is working together. Like, that's how it works. Same thing in your internal microbiome. If you don't have a minimum of 80% of your bacteria working together to keep you well, then you get sick. That's just how it works.
I mean, humans existed for like 200,000 years plus without the existence of hand sanitizer. And sure, I'll give it to you, the average death rate, it's a lot higher, death age is a lot higher now than it was 200,000 years ago. But it's not because of hand sanitizer that people are living longer. Humans have been adapting to germs as long as we've existed. I don't see any benefit in preventing our body from being able to adapt to the germs and bacteria around us, considering that by and large it's not harmful.
It's kind of like holy water to them, and like they're getting their blessing every time they do it.
That's a good point.
Statism is a religion.
There are certain facts of life that kind of make people feel squeamish, but they're real. Do you have any idea how many organisms are between you and me? Like, I literally could not count the number of bacteria that are floating around in the air between you and I right now. That's just how life is. We get used to it. We adapt to these little buggers.
The only one that I know of that really bothers me are the mites that live in our eyelashes. Those are the ones that I just try hard not to think about.
Tasty mascara.
Yeah, because I would just, I hate that I even thought about it, but as soon as we started talking about these microorganisms that, we coexist with, the eyelash mites are right up there at the top of the list.
It's uncomfortable, but that's life.
It is.
We need them in our gut.
603-283-6160 is the call-in line. You can take control of the airwaves, talk about whatever you want. 603-283-6160.
I'm grateful to have heard from some of our satellite listeners recently. I appreciate knowing that people are out there who like what we do and are willing to support it financially. LRN.FM's free-to-air satellite feeds blanket most of 2 continents. It was my goal to put our channel there so people without internet could receive our programs and feed pirate radio stations. We started a fundraiser on Patreon a few years ago to back the satellite channels. I recently announced that I was considering canceling the feeds, and donations increased from 15 to 20% of our costs, which are around $1,000 per month. That's a good start, and to incentivize more contributions, the Shire Free Church will be matching every dollar. Can we reach $500 per month? With your help, we can. You can join our satellite fundraiser for just $2 a month at fund.lrn.fm. If we raise enough to keep both of the channels on the air, awesome. If we raise more, I'll add more channels. If not, we can shut them down and go internet only. It's up to you. Thank you for your support. fund.lrn.fm. The new 4th edition of Healing Our World, The Compassion of Libertarianism will take your understanding of liberty to a deeper level and has over 1,300 updated references, new cartoons, and a foreword by Dr. Ron Paul. With discounts for multiple book purchases, the 4th edition of Healing Our World is a great gift for the liberals, pragmatists, environmentalists, and Christians in your life who think libertarianism is cold-hearted. Get yours today at healing.freetalklive.com and use promo code FTL for a $5 discount. There are lots of ways to listen to Free Talk Live. Our podcast has been around since podcasts began, and now the FTL feed is loaded with content besides our full show archives. Did you know that we make it easy for you to customize your podcast subscriptions? We have different feeds, one that includes only our full shows, one with just the Daily Digest, and our main feed that includes everything. You decide what you listen to. It's quick and easy to customize your feeds at feeds.freetalklive.com. That's feeds.freetalklive.com.
So the protection of life, liberty, and property is what the Free State Project is all about. But it's an effort to move 20,000 people who understand.
It's about demonstrating to the entire country
that, yeah, we can have a free market, a truly free market.
Making it just a freer, great place to live.
It's the world's largest voluntarist libertarian community, and it's only getting bigger.
That's amazing, to be able to move to a place where other people passionately believe in being free and independent.
What the Free State Project is managing to do, though, is to put their money where their mouth is. It's physically getting up across the country and saying, let's go someplace and let's demonstrate the power of these ideas. There's a lot of kind of philosophy that surrounds liberty. There's a lot of thinking about it and talking about it. But here in New Hampshire, people are doing it.
101 Reasons Liberty Lives in New Hampshire, a documentary by Free State Project early movers. Watch it free at 101reasonsfilm.com. 101reasonsfilm.com. What if you want to hear the latest episode of Free Talk Live, but all you have is your phone, you forgot to download our archive, and you have no data connection? You can call our Listen line at 641-793-0191. That's a long-distance number, so you may incur charges. If not, listen as long as you want. 641-793-0191. The Free Talk Live Listen line, 641-793-0191. Are you a cryptocurrency advocate? The Crypto Tip is the ideal outreach tool to help new people discover cryptocurrency. It's a printable business card-sized tip that you can give to service providers, preferably in addition to a good cash tip. When the server scans the QR code, it'll bring up an explanation of cryptocurrency, how to install a wallet, and allow them to claim the tip. If they don't claim the crypto, you get your tip refunded to you after a time period you specify. Plus, if they do claim the tip, you get an email alert. Create as many tips as you want at cryptotip.org. That's cryptotip.org.
You can stick it to the man and big tech. Join our FTL social mastodon at social.freetalklive.com.
Welcome back. It is Free Talk Live, 603-283-6160 if you want to join the conversation. We've been talking about government overspending and other issues. I mean, we spent most of that one talking about, I've already forgotten. It's all very weird to me to be here in this space doing the show.
Disorienting.
It is, and there's a lot that I wasn't prepared for that I thought I was prepared for, like not having a big giant clock for us to look at. So we knew I had my clock set up, so I at least had that part right. It never even occurred to me that it would be nice for you to have a clock. So right behind me on the projector there is a big giant clock that's probably about 3 feet tall. Well, it's not that bad. It's probably 2 feet.
I'm a firm believer in Hofstadter's law. Everything takes longer than you expect it to. In fact, even if you include expecting it to take longer, it will take longer than that.
It took a bizarre amount of time to find a clock application and get it installed, for sure. I mean, that's as simple as a thing as you would expect to be able to do, but no. It became this monumental task that took like 3 minutes. And I call that a monumental task because it should have taken 5 seconds.
Right, should have. Yeah, now, we were talking about the fact that there are microorganisms just on our skin and in our eyes and in your gut, and actually, you literally require them to live.
But before we get back into that, let's go to the phones. We've got Butch calling from Florida. Butch, you're on Free Talk Live.
Hey, it's Butch.
Hey, what's on your mind tonight?
Hey, guys, how's it going on the show? I love a new studio. Is it a new studio now to be doing the show, or going to go back to the old one, or...
For the
We're branching
foreseeable,
out.
Yeah, for the foreseeable future, on Sunday through Wednesday, the show will be broadcast from here. On Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, it will be broadcast from the primary studio, the LRN studio. And this is
That's where Ian is, right? That's where Ian lives?
Yes, and it's because that I'm not allowed
Who's
to
the
have...
other guys? Who's the new guys on the show? Big guys, big beard, and big... look at a guy on a shirt, and it's ripped up on the side of the overall and everything. Who's
That
this
would be
guy?
Joa.
That would be Joa.
I'm Joa.
What,
Nice to
what,
meet you.
do you guys do a libertarian?
Yes.
Do you guys do
Are
a
you guys
libertarian? That is a matter of my
Yeah,
personal
yeah.
life, and I'll thank you not to invade it.
Libertarian values, yeah.
So it says you wanted to talk about the vaccine,
have a-
Butch.
Well, the vaccine I was wondering about for libertarian in regards to vaccine is this guy, that guy, I don't know his name, I didn't hear, but he said libertarian in their values. And does that mean is it not good to take a vaccine?
So here's the libertarian values on vaccines. You decide, and I don't put a gun to your head either way.
That I would
never. I don't use a gun. That's what.
Well, that's
so-
the thing,
okay,
Butch.
but
The government requiring there seems to be some sort of delay in the phone line that I'm going to have to look into. But the required vaccines, when the government requires vaccines, they may not be literally coming out and putting a gun to your head and telling you that you have to get this vaccine, but they are doing that figuratively because at the end of the day, ultimately, they're going to prohibit you access to whatever services and venues they want, and if you try to use any of those services or venues, some of which may be required to live your life, they will call the police. And if you resist, the police will shoot you.
And it's important to remember that every law is backed up by the threat of death. It's
Yes.
like, oh, well, I parked without putting a quarter in the meter. Okay, well, they're going to put a little ticket on there. Oh, well, that's nothing. Well, if you don't pay it, then they're going to come to arrest you. Well, that's nothing. Well, if you don't want them to arrest you, if you don't want them to kidnap you, pull you out of your life, and gently torture you for an indeterminate period of time, they will kill you.
They will. I mean, they killed George Floyd. Not George Floyd. God, there's Eric Gardner. There's,
Eric
there's
Gardner
so
for
freaking many
cigarettes, yeah.
for selling cigarettes. And now the U.S. government wants to come out with a menthol ban nationwide. Evidently,
Yeah.
I smoke menthols. I'm not a big fan of this ban. I'm not a big fan of any ban, but yes. What do you imagine the police state apparatus of the United States is going to do when menthol cigarettes are illegal and people can only acquire them by hand rolling them and selling them on the streets, a la Eric Gardner?
To be perfectly honest, I think that there will absolutely be a violent uprising if they actually ban menthol cigarettes. I'm not kidding.
It would be stupid of them to do because it's so obviously racist on their parts.
Right. And they even admitted that it's racist. It's like, no, black people like this. That's why we're stopping them from doing it.
Yes, because it's all about the white savior complex, right? Oh, they think black people are too stupid or too reckless or too irresponsible, whatever, to just say, hey, no, I'd rather not smoke. They think the allure of the menthol cigarette is just beyond the capabilities of the black person to handle, and that's obviously nonsense.
I would say that, to go back to the caller's question about libertarianism, is that, these come down to choices. You have a choice to smoke cigarettes. You have the choice to get the vaccine, and that the idea is to not force people. And if, not getting the vaccine or getting the vaccine, are you hurting anybody? Well, maybe yourself, and that's my opinion, but, you still have that choice to do that. You have the right to put anything in your body, and including a bullet if you wanted to.
As a general rule, I'm pro-vaccine because I think they do more harm than good. I'm not worried about the mumps or the measles or whatever because I'm vaccinated against those things and never had any problems with them. However, this COVID-19 vaccine is unlike any other vaccine that's been rolled out previously. It's a mRNA, it's gene therapy, it's experimental gene therapy. I'm not particularly interested in helping the powers that be undertake this worldwide experiment where they start screwing around with people's genes. Maybe I'm crazy, but it just sounds like something that we probably should give more thought to before we try it.
It's just this combination of so many factors. So, like, one of the things that they are absolutely silencing us about is vitamin D. Maybe you might need to actually get into the sun. Let the sunlight hit your skin. Well, I know that's not something you're a terribly big fan of.
Oh, so I'm probably the darkest person in this room.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Dang. Man,
But anyway,
I'm slipping. Slipping.
We've got Bitcoin Gandhi, and I really want to go to him.
Like vitamin D and, exercise.
Hold that thought. Bitcoin Gandhi, are you with us?
I am.
How goes your trek across New Hampshire?
Well, let's just say that there are no restrictions on washing your clothes many, many, many times over and over and over again in a laundromat after they are covered with poison ivy or rusty oil.
Goodness.
Brutal.
I'm sorry to hear that.
Well, it was almost inevitable. I'm glad I made it this far.
So, did you get the poison ivy? I'm assuming you did. You got it on your skin?
Yes, I'm seeing new outbreaks every day for the last 4 days. So it is, and I am quite susceptible. So there will be some suffering, but that is what the whole purpose of Satyagraha is supposed to be.
Well, you've certainly been out there suffering both in the heat, in the rain, and the cold, because this is New Hampshire, and it's delivered all three of those within the last 4 days. And not to mention the fact that you've been walking hundreds of miles here because you didn't take a straight path directly to Concord. So the suffering that
no, the total is only about 60 miles. I think I have not. I've only walked a few miles per day, but I have been forced to carry all of my equipment and the costuming and the camping supplies with me. The Manhattan had someone to carry things for him.
And yeah, I've
nice.
I felt how heavy that dolly was with your stuff there, and I feel like your trip may have been like 3 times the energy than what you're saying. So, like you said, 60 miles, but it was probably 180 miles.
Just in terms of how much effort he has to put forth to get there.
That's right. And I did it. We started right here next door at the Mighty Moose.
That's true.
You have managed to achieve my. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
You had a request for listeners. It says.
Oh yes, a request that I wanted to make to listeners. I have been able to post, despite my computer breaking down. I've been able to post a Facebook event for this June 2nd civil disobedience. This is all leading up to at the Federal Building, and I've been able to invite perhaps 100 people, but. It would be very helpful if people connected to New Hampshire could invite all their friends to this event, and we could get up to the 500 or 600 invite list or invite point. Then we could perhaps increase our turnout a bit.
Now, where can people find details about this event?
BitcoinGandhi.net.
BitcoinGandhi.net. Perfect.
And you might want to spell. Gandhi.
It has links to the Facebook event that was set up by my brother.
Awesome. Thanks so much. That's Bitcoin Gandhi, Gandhi, I believe, .net. That's a Wednesday. I can actually do... No, I can't. I work Wednesday. I was just so excited because I thought, hey, that's a Wednesday. I'm always off on Wednesdays, but I haven't been off on Wednesdays in like 6 months.
Well, I'm planning on being there for sure.
Thank you so much, Dave. Keep up the awesome work.
The Terran Federation and the Terran League have been killing each other for decades. Sheltered, wealthy, and light years from the threat, the members of the 500 have no interest in changing that. When Rear Admiral Terrence Murphy is given governorship of a backwater system, a risk-free path to wealth and power is his for the taking. But Murphy is a man of honor, duty, and responsibility. He intends to stop the killing, whatever the cost. Governor, by David Weber and Richard Fox, from BaneBooks.com.
Are you tired of governments murdering people around the world? Stop using their money. There is an alternative. Bitcoin is a stateless, free market, non-political currency. Bitcoin cannot be inflated or controlled by any government. By using their money, you are helping the state. Stop doing it. You have an incredible alternative available now. Learn it, use it, spread it. Get started with Bitcoin at Bitcoin.com. That's Bitcoin.com.
Breaking weather news. Belize is sunny and around 82 degrees every day this week.
What's the forecast for your life? If current politics and economic prospects are cramping your freedom, escape to the tropics. ECI Development has affordable second homes for you to own or rent in Belize and other tropical countries. Places with stable governments and growing economies. Secure your freedom now. To find out more, send an email to ftl@ecidevelopment.com.
Tired of cancel culture? Sick of mega tech corporations holding an axe over your head? Join the LRN.FM Matrix chat server. It's self-hosted, so no one else can tell us what to do or say. Don't like the existing channels? You can make your own. You can even connect into some of our channels from other Matrix servers. It's federated. For the full LRN.FM Matrix experience, though, you should join our server via the step-by-step instructions at chat.lrn.fm. chat.lrn.fm.
You're listening to the live edition of Free Talk Live. Hour number 2 is next after the news here on the Liberty Radio Network at LRN.FM.
They served and they sacrificed. I'm Pam Huso, Fox News. Emotional tributes are being paid to American service members who died fighting for our country. President Biden laid a wreath at Arlington National Cemetery.
May we now dedicate our souls that our work may prove worthy of the blood of our fallen. For this work, the work of democracy, is the work of our time and for all time.
The president called on Americans to commemorate our fallen heroes by remembering their fight for the nation's ideals. A crime at a veterans cemetery is under investigation.
A Memorial Day weekend theft of a large American flag and several smaller flags from a Southern California veterans cemetery is being called sad and shocking by officials at the site. Les Melnick with the Department of Veterans Affairs National Cemetery Administration says the theft occurred sometime Sunday night or early Memorial Day. Melnick says the incident at the Los Angeles National Cemetery cannot detract from the honor and respect we pay to the servicemen and women who made the ultimate sacrifice for the country.
Fox's Rich Dennison. A developing story in California where a sheriff's deputy has been shot while attempting a traffic stop. That's according to authorities in San Bernardino County, who say the deputy has been airlifted to a hospital. The suspect has been located. Consensus between the White House and Senate Republicans is still being sought on infrastructure, and time could be running out.
President Biden will move forward with his infrastructure proposal without Republicans if a deal cannot be struck with Republicans. Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg says by the time Congress returns from recess next week, there needs to be a clear direction.
Fox's Jared Halpern. Republicans have said the White House proposal is too expensive. America's listening to Fox News. The UK is ramping up efforts to vaccinate people against the coronavirus. British health officials are concerned about a virus variant first detected in India that's spreading rapidly. Because of the variant, many scientists are urging the government to delay reopening plans. All remaining virus restrictions are scheduled to be lifted in a few weeks. Growing momentum on both sides of the aisle to figure out exactly where the virus came from.
I think all the evidence points towards those labs in Wuhan, and if we find out that's the origins of this virus, then China really needs to pay. They haven't paid enough yet for unleashing this plague on the world. I don't think that China's going to reveal what happened in those labs anytime soon. I think they're going to continue to try to cover it up.
Senate Republican Tom Cotton. The leaders of New Zealand and Australia are also urging further investigation into the origin. They met face-to-face today for the first time in more than a year. As its population gets older, China is shifting gears when it comes to family planning.
The ruling Communist Party now says 3 kids per family is acceptable. The rule has been just 2 children since 2015. Leaders say more kids will skew a rapidly aging population younger. They see an older citizenry as impeding a desire to build a workforce that leads the world in global technology. But easing family limits may not mean an immediate baby boom. Many couples say the high cost of child rearing takes away from their dedication to both work and caring for aging parents. China's population today, with the 2-child limit, is around 1.4 billion.
That's Fox's Gernal Scott. The earthquake that rattled Alaska late last night could be felt for hundreds of miles. Officials say the 6.1 magnitude quake shook the ground as far south as Homer and as far north as Fairbanks. I'm Pam Puso, and this is Fox News.
Are you making sense to the boomer mindset? I'm Holland Cook from survivalspeech.com. 80 million baby boomers comprise 25% of the population and control most of the USA's wealth. As aging parents pass on, they'll control more. Boomers are 46 to 65 years old and regard themselves as midlife. They identify as neither young nor old. They're post-minivan and pre-retirement, and they don't like being called boomers. They think me. Many of the purchases boomer couples make are individual purposes. They've been experimenters all their lives. If you want their attention, tell stories and keep it simple. If something seems complicated, boomers can dismiss it as, I don't need this. And if you're looking for work, you may be applying to a boomer, so relate accordingly. From survivalspeech.com, I'm Holland Cook.
The American robin heralds the beginning of spring in temperate climates across North America. Its red breast makes it easily identifiable as the most disturbingly efficient murderer in the animal kingdom. Here, we see a robin rip a worm out of the ground with no moral hesitation whatsoever. This atrocity is but one in a series of cold-blooded murders this bird will commit in a single day. Although feces-fueled worms are themselves one of the most disgusting of all animals, the robin's cruelty remains indefensible. Some apologists might argue that robins need to eat worms to survive, but worms are capable of regeneration. So robins could satiate themselves on fractions of individual worms and leave the rest. But it does not. Unequivocal evidence of the robin's bloodlust.
This is the Onion News Network.
Free Talk Live.
It is Free Talk Live, 603-283-6160. If you want to join the conversation, take control of the airwaves, talk about whatever you want, 603-283-6160. With you in the studio tonight, it's Aria,
Joa, and Beakless Mountaineer.
I should be more specific now, I guess, with you from the Amdusia studio. So named because it was originally the Amdusias Music Studio, right? And that was because Amdusias in satanic mythology is the demon of music, essentially. So it was an obvious choice, considering it was to be owned eventually by the Reformed Satanic Church. But
so not Asmodeus?
No.
Ah.
There are two different ones.
All right.
So, yes, that's where we're at now. It was last Monday night, actually. It's been a week since our brother Ian was released. And that created a number of very urgent hurdles that the show Free Talk Live had to overcome without any of the people who have been managing and producing Free Talk Live for the last 2 years communicating with each other.
Yeah, the first one that comes to mind of hurdles that they had to overcome was getting rid of the quote-unquote arsenal that the 6 government agencies had found when they raided the studio that belonged to his roommate.
Yes, but that was taken care of, and then finally last Monday night he was released, and he presumably is sitting at home, and I mean, it sucks. He's under house arrest, right? But it's better than jail, you know?
It is better than jail.
Infinitely.
My restrictions are a lot tighter than his, and I'm not a big fan of them, but they are infinitely better than jail.
Yeah.
It's like whatever terms they throw at you for you to have to submit to, okay, you can't use Facebook, you can't use YouTube, you can't use a computer or whatever. It's like, okay, because those conditions are true inside the jail as well. But at least if I'm not outside the jail, I can set my own schedule. I can get up and walk around my house as I please. But I'm not nearly as limited as Ian is. For whatever reason, I'm allowed to come and go as I please.
Well, because you're not a mastermind. You're not
No,
a...
I'm not.
Yeah, well,
Neither is Ian. I mean,
well, obviously.
but
I mean,
they
in order to
painted him
be
as
a criminal mastermind, you would have to be criminal. I mean, what did you do?
Well, you don't have to be a criminal to be a mastermind. I mean, you can.
That's true.
I masterminded the studio here, I suppose, and there's nothing criminal about that.
But yes, to be a criminal mastermind, you would have to be a criminal, and he doesn't harm people.
Well, they certainly think he's a flight risk, hits the house arrest and all of that.
Well,
I'm not
he
here
has-
to argue about his bail
He
conditions.
has
That's his
no
attorney's
connection
job.
to New Hampshire, don't you know? It's not like he lives here, has a business here, has friends here, is constantly getting people to come here.
Yeah, like free Keene. Like he wants people to move to Keene. Like I don't think he wants to move away from the promoting of people moving to an area he lives at. It doesn't make any sense.
Well, that's because you're not a criminal mastermind. A criminal mastermind will get everyone to move to a location that they have no intention of experiencing themselves.
It sounds like Washington, D.C., criminal masterminds in
Right.
one location.
Yeah, talk about the pot calling the kettle black, but I mean, this isn't even a kettle. Like, this is a black hole calling the sun black, honestly.
It is frustrating, but we've managed to carry on the show. We've managed to carry on to some degree of normalcy. My attorney is to be filing a motion to allow me and Ian to have contact with one another. Obviously, the magistrate is going to deny that, and we're going to have to appeal it to the judge, who was the same one. I mean, he's the judge of the case, the one that ultimately set Ian free. He's the final judge that we're going to be arguing this case with.
Set him free-ish with plenty of conditions.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, well, freedom shouldn't be relative, but right now it is.
Mm-hmm.
I would love to be able to say that, hey, we're free, and that's the end of it. But right now, realistically, we're dealing with a series of degraded freedom, some of which we have, some of which we don't.
He's been set free, by which I mean not in a concrete box.
Well, like they make us jump through hoops every day. Like, or we have to register our cars. We have to go to DMV. We got to go do all these things they want us to do. They just added a couple more hoops for Ian.
Mm-hmm. Yep, it's a series of concentric circles. Well, we're all in this circle, and we have to do these things. And you're in this circle, you're not allowed to do these things. And he's in this circle, and he's not allowed to do these things. But at least he's not in this circle, which is a concrete box.
I remind the sheriffs in Keene that these rules, these policies, do not apply to me, right? And I was trying to go in there for a reason. But I was like, I follow the law. I'm trying to follow the law, and that's what I'm supposed to do. Policies, rules, those are for you. And unless you want to give me a badge and a gun, and maybe then I can exercise those privileges that we supposedly granted to you, so I can carry out what I need to do at the court, like filing a motion. They will not let me file a motion at the courts.
Really?
They will not let me in.
Huh.
Why
With
is that?
or without my camera. I don't know.
I heard recently that someone, Matt Coleman, went to pay his fine that he got for allegedly shooting off fireworks in Central Square at a nightcap.
Yes.
And someone attempted to film it. I don't know who that was.
That was me.
That was you.
Yeah, and I went there a second time to reinforce my, my rights, and they still denied me. I did it. I have it all on camera. That's the most recent video I did on my channel too. So.
Which, as far as I'm aware, that's a new development for Keene. Just 6 months ago, you could have carried a camera into any of these places, and they would not have been surprised or alarmed.
Mm-hmm.
No.
So that's a shocking and upsetting development.
It is.
Well, and it's just so blatantly obvious. I mean, if you are not doing anything wrong, then why won't you let us film you doing what you're doing?
Well, the real truth is once they gain these powers, it's really hard for them to give them up.
Well, and I mean, that's the argument for us, right? Like, oh, well, sure, they're spying on you, but if you're not doing anything wrong, then you've got nothing to fear. And while that is absolutely insane for us, they're supposed to be our, we delegated them powers?
Servants.
Yeah.
Public
that.
servants. And they should be trying to serve me as I want. I'm trying to carry out my rights. Serve me. Don't restrict me. Don't threaten me with arrest or trespass or disorderly conduct, whatever butthurt charges you guys want to come up with. No, I have rights. let's respect that.
Yeah, I wonder how that would go. Like, you end up in court for one thing or another, and basically, I would like to see a judge be forced to answer the question, are you a public servant?
I imagine they try not to answer direct questions like that. But I mean, no, they're not public servants. They might, and even if they call themselves public servants, even if they were willing to do that, they serve the state, which is antagonistic of the quote public.
I had a friend of mine that go to court years ago, and the first thing he said to the judge was, "I don't think you're even a U.S. citizen," and a lot of them are not. They're not legally U.S. citizens. That's how they can become magistrates and that sort of thing.
I don't know about that, but I've heard a lot of this, U.S. citizen stuff, and it's just a can of worms that...
Oh, yeah. So, citizen it's on my list. I have a list of words that are basically auto-antonyms. So, my favorite one is sanction, because if I don't sanction your activity, I might have to sanction your activity. But some more damaging ones are words like communism, capitalism, and citizen. So in some contexts, by some people, what a citizen is, well, you're a member of our community, that we have this culture that we're doing, and you're part of that.
It's a very layman's way of saying it, but the literal term of citizen is you're a subject of the United States of America.
That's what it means in their language.
Of a U.S. citizen, at least.
Well, and that's the thing. Legalese is a different language. And in that weird, freaky language, and they have very well documented this, citizen is equivalent to subject.
Well, absolutely. I mean, this whole thing extended from kings that viewed us as subjects. It evolved into this, quote, constitutional republic, but if the Constitution doesn't matter, then we basically just have kings again.
Well, and this is why I love Lansing versus Smith. Very early on in this so-called republic's existence, they went to court, and they found specifically that all of the powers that had belonged to the king now belonged to the people or to the states.
What are your thoughts? 603-283-6160 is the call-in line. 603-283-6160. The line should be free. Again, we had a troll basically claiming them up. This is Free Talk Live.
Some of you asked, and now we've delivered. LRN.FM's live Keene, New Hampshire studio shows are now streamed in HD on Twitch. Visit our channel at twitch.lrn.fm and give it a follow. If you have Amazon Prime, you get one free subscription on Twitch. If you use it on our channel, Twitch will give LRN.FM a monthly piece of your Prime subscription cost. So please watch, follow, share, and subscribe to twitch.lrn.fm. That's twitch.lrn.fm.
Do you feel like your nation, state, or community no longer holds your values? Have you dreamt of a place where people agree that liberty is important and are free to pursue their projects so long as they respect the property of others? There are many people just like you that are discovering freeprivatecities.com. Their social media links are at the upper right of the page at freeprivatecities.com. All skill levels will be needed when the first of the Free Private Cities opens. It's sooner than you think. Stop arguing and build. freeprivatecities.com.
A newly recruited search and rescue officer, Marshall Hunter was resigned to a life of rescuing wayward spacefarers and derelict satellites. But when a billionaire couple goes missing, his own ship is disabled during the rescue. With communication satellites suddenly failing and lunar mineral shipments disappearing in transit, the crew suspects it's more than a coincidence, and Hunter must choose between salvation and sacrifice to save his crewmates and their civilian charges. Frontier by Patrick Childs and BingBooks.com.
Are you tired of governments murdering people around the world? Stop using their money. There is an alternative. Bitcoin is a stateless, free market, non-political currency. Bitcoin cannot be inflated or controlled by any government. By using their money, you are helping the state. Stop doing it. You have an incredible alternative available now. Learn it, use it, spread it.
Get started with Bitcoin at bitcoin.com. That's bitcoin.com.
Free Talk Live.
I actually tried to delete my own Facebook. It only lasted 2 days. I couldn't get off it. It was tough. They won't delete it. They want you to come back. They know you're going to come back because it's like a drug. They know you're coming back for it. They're crazy like that.
Some people I went to grad school with, they would give their password to somebody else and tell them to change it so they couldn't log it back on and give it to them after finals were over.
My problem is my password is after my dog's name, Buster, so I actually name all my passwords that.
So what's your,
what I'm saying is,
what's your username?
He's my little bub.
Okay, but you could give someone.
He's very nice.
Okay, so
everybody loves Buster.
I just want to say thank you for redeeming this.
you might want to go change all your passwords
Yeah,
now.
she's suggesting
Well, it's not just Buster. I use capital letters and numbers.
Okay,
Great call, man. Thanks for making it. I appreciate it.
I hope that was fake.
Thank God. Of course it was. It was hilarious.
What are you talking about? Free Talk Live, 7 nights a week from 7 to 10 Eastern, live on the Liberty Radio Network at LRN.FM.
If you want to know the latest about Free Talk Live before we go on the air, all you need to decide is how you want it delivered. It's your choice. Visit news.freetalklive.com to receive our usually weekly news updates by email. Plus, we have a Twitter account at twitter.freetalklive.com, and you can follow us on the decentralized Mastodon platform at toot.freetalklive.com. So please follow us at toot.freetalklive.com and sign up for our emails at news.freetalklive.com.
My name is Jacob Hornberger. I'm president of the Future of Freedom Foundation, which Congressman Ron Paul awarded for having an outstanding freedom website. Write us at fff@fff.org, and we'll send you a free 3-month subscription to our monthly journal of libertarian essays and our booklet, Economic Liberty in the Constitution, which George Mason University economics professor Walter Williams praised in a recent column. That's fff@fff.org.
Don't miss a moment of Free Talk Live. Get our archives daily via our podcast at feeds.freetalklive.com.
It's Free Talk Live, 603-283-6160. If you want to join the conversation, that's 603-283-6160. With you in the studio, it's Arya, Joa, and Peakless Mountaineer in the Amduzi studio. And before we got sidetracked into all of these other things, which is good, it happens, we were talking about the complexities of, well, one of the things we actually got sidetracked into was the complexities of communication.
Mm-hmm.
You mentioned the word capitalist, that there are a lot of words that have connotations that may not necessarily be what one means, and this is something that I use to my advantage by calling myself an anarchist, a transsexual, a Satanist, where most people would rather me call myself, a voluntarist, transgender,
devil worshiper,
humanist.
I'm kidding.
I was about to say atheist, but sure.
Yeah. Well, humanism is probably closer as an ideology to Satanism than atheism is.
Yeah, atheism is, like, the term atheist is a very contentious term. So the way I think of it is pretty simple. Like, if you don't know, if you could go either way, you're agnostic. Like,
well,
I don't think there is one,
misnomer.
but I don't know.
That's a misnomer. Agnostic deals with knowledge. Theism deals with belief, right? No one knows whether or not there's a God. Some people think they know. They go, oh, no, I know there's a God. But you don't know that. You just believe it.
Well, that really depends on how you define a God.
Sure. I mean, if you believe that this water bottle is a God, then sure. You know that water bottle exists, in so much as you can reasonably know anything.
So that makes you a pretty solid theist in that case. If you consider the water bottle to be a God, you are pretty darn certain that there's a water bottle there.
Sure, but if your definition of God is so loose that it can include a water bottle as your deity, then I kind of have to dispute that you're a believer in the first place.
Consider pantheists. I mean, pantheists consider the entire universe to be God.
Right.
And there is definitely a universe. I mean, it's about as sure as you get about anything.
Yes, but believing that knowing that there is a universe isn't the same as knowing that the universe is God. They believe the universe is God, but they don't know that. They know there is a universe.
Well, that's categorical. So if you categorize the universe as God and categorize God as the universe, then you're certain that there is a universe. That makes you certain that there is God.
Or like people say that God is all-knowing. Well, the universe is all-knowing, right?
Right.
Or things like this that
is a very common attribute of God. Personally, I have a big problem with the whole omnipotent good guy concept.
Well, omnipotence itself, I think, is an idea that should just be stricken from human discourse forever.
Well,
because the idea of omnipotence it's self-contradictory.
Is the universe omnipotent? Kinda?
Well, no, because it obeys rules that evidently cannot break, that we see no evidence for, like.
Maybe.
Well, we constantly discover it. So what if it's changing before our eyes and then we discover it?
I mean,
that's fair, but the odds of that one day gravity is just going to stop working because the universe can do whatever it wants, it's not worth considering. As far as we can tell, the universe has to obey the laws of gravity.
So, yeah, I mean, in a sense, whether or not the universe is omnipotent is kind of irrelevant given the lifespan and geographical range that we have.
I don't see any reason to believe that the universe as a whole is an actor in the universe, right? It creates actors through these natural processes, but I don't see any reason to believe that this thing called the universe has any direct intention or ability to say, hey, I want life to evolve on this planet. I think it
you do kind of run into the quantum measurement problem that way.
Yeah, I was going to say, like, what if we started building these quantum computers and they can start thinking on their own? This is not generated by, species or anything like that. This is something that humans created out of nothing, just from, like, putting a couple computer pieces together. And
that's not nothing. That's putting a couple of computer pieces together.
Well, yeah, but the digital transmission is really just that's all that is. It's not like... we put all the parts together and then created the God, and that maybe this thing could always know the right answer, or I'm just saying that the definition of God could be coming very soon to us through the means of a computer system, and I can see it doing its own
I'm not going
self-preservation and protection.
I'm not going to accept the definition of God as being artificial intelligence.
Would it be artificial if it's just given enough to think on its own and then starts thinking?
Well, whether we allow it to be considered, the reason it's artificial intelligence is because it's man-made, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's why it gets the artificial moniker.
But my point is that just a part of it's man-made, just like you have children, that's man-made.
But if we created it, then
all artificial things are partially artificial, technically speaking. But it's one of those, once you are a little artificial, you are artificial.
Well, it's also worth mentioning that humans are natural. So anything we do is by definition natural. True. So it would be natural intelligence. But, human ego being what it is, we consider anything we create to not be natural for whatever reason, because we can't face the reality that, hey, we are products of nature. And that's it.
I did want to get back to, your view of consciousness is a thing that naturally arises from matter. And the problem with that viewpoint is that it runs into the quantum measurement problem.
How so?
So, if you have a wavicle, which is, as far as I know, the actual term.
Keep in mind, I majored in physics.
I'm aware.
Okay.
I'm aware. It's why I like talking to you about this stuff. And for once, you are sober and talking to me at the same time about quantum physics.
Yes,
it's awesome.
We're not at Forkfest.
Indeed. Indeed. So, once you have a wavicle, it is neither a wave nor a particle, so it can't act in any way as a wave or as a particle until it's been measured. Now, once it's been measured, it can act as a particle or it can act as a wave, depending on which way you measured it. So you run into the problem that a particle can't measure a particle. I mean, it's sort of an infinite regress problem.
I don't see what that has to do with consciousness.
Well, consciousness is what does the measuring.
Well, not necessarily, right? You're sort of alleging that, if a tree falls in the woods and there's no one there to hear it, then it doesn't make any noise, But we don't know that, right? We don't know whether or not a wave or a particle will collapse due to some outside force, due to some electronic hitting it or some electron hitting it or something like that. We just don't know.
Well, that's what I mean about the infinite regress problem. So if you have particle or subatomic particle or whatever, particle A, or wavicle A, to be accurate about it. Okay, so if wavicle A can be particleized by particle B, okay, well, where did particle B get its particle nature as opposed to its wave-like nature?
Well, that's a philosophical question of which came first, the chicken or the egg.
Well,
I don't have the answer to that, and neither does science, because it goes back into a literal black hole singularity that we haven't yet been able to figure out.
Right, but if you acknowledge that consciousness exists, and we have
it certainly seems to.
I am definitely experiencing what I would call consciousness, and I sincerely believe that you are also experiencing consciousness. Now, consciousness doesn't have the same problem as waves and particles. Like, consciousness doesn't need to run into itself in order to exist. It's just a thing, and we don't really know exactly where it comes from.
I used to believe that was true, but that's not actually the case, I don't think. I can't actually Google it, but I do recall I used to say that we don't know how consciousness came into existence. But being as I can't Google it, I'm basing that off memory here, off something I read like 4 years ago,
Okay,
so I don't know.
that is
Disregard
cheating.
what I even said.
I'm just saying that's cheating.
Yeah, I'm saying
I know you're wrong,
disregard
but
it.
I cannot prove it because I can't use the internet as cheating.
I said disregard it.
God only knows.
Is spreading the message of liberty, cryptocurrency, and peace around the globe worth $2 per month to you? As you may already know, in addition to our internet feed, LRN.FM broadcasts on free-to-air satellite across North and Central America, as well as Sub-Saharan Africa. And we've been available on satellite for free 24/7 since 2010. The LRN.FM free-to-air satellite signal is reaching some of the most oppressive regimes in the world, and there's no doubt our ideas are making an impact. You can learn more about the channel's impact by watching the 3-minute video at fund.lrn.fm. If you'd like to help free minds globally with our ideas of liberty, cryptocurrency, and peace, you can donate as little as $2 per month via fund.lrn.fm. You can help us continue and expand our satellite broadcast to multiple continents. Visit fund.lrn.fm today, and thank you for your help. Don't forget to share the link on social media. That's fund.lrn.fm.
Hey, you are going to love the movie Victimless Crime Spree. It's hilarious, heartwarming, and carries a ton of inspiring freedom messages. Feeling down about the lack of liberty in your life? You need to put on this film with some friends and have a good laugh. It's a true story about me and my friends in New Hampshire living free, singing, dancing, and getting arrested. Of course, it's all on video, and the bad guys, the cops, judges, bailiffs, and sheriffs, they all play their part like it's out of a movie or something. You would think we scripted the whole thing, but it's real life. Go ahead and have a watch, and if it's been a while, have another look. I guarantee you'll notice things now that you didn't notice before. And the best part is that you're going to walk away feeling a renewed sense of your own power. You are the master of your destiny, and you will be free in your lifetime. Victimless Crime Spree.
Bitcoin.com has launched a trading platform at local.bitcoin.com, allowing you to buy or sell Bitcoin Cash via dozens of payment methods like PayPal, Venmo, bank deposit, remittances, or meeting in person with cash. There are no ID requirements to sign up for and use the site, and all communications between buyers and sellers are encrypted. Finally, a global trading platform that respects your privacy. Visit local.bitcoin.com to get started trading Bitcoin Cash. local.bitcoin.com. The LRN.FM social media channels have been revamped. We've eliminated Facebook and focused on other platforms like Twitter and Mastodon, the decentralized alternative to Twitter. On our accounts, you'll find posts from multiple LRN.FM show hosts together in one place. Follow us on Twitter at twitter.lrn.fm, or better yet, move to the decentralized Mastodon social media platform at toot.lrn.fm, toot.lrn.fm. I think you'll like it. On Free Talk Live, we're bringing people to the ideas of liberty every day. From wrestling superstars like Glenn Jacobs.
You guys really are having an impact, I believe. Like I said, a lot of where I am now is due to listening to Free Talk Live. You changed my mind on some very important issues years ago.
To random people tuning in on the radio.
I was kind of stuck in the left-right paradigm. I heard your show by chance on a Saturday night. From there, I went on, joined the Free State Project, and become an amplifier. So, I mean, that's really the reason why I amp is because I know that if it wasn't for you guys being on as many stations as you are, I never would have found the ideas of liberty.
Your amp will directly change more lives by getting Free Talk Live in front of people looking for talk radio online and on the air. When you amp Free Talk Live, you get perks like access to the AMP-only Facebook group and AMP podcast. Visit amp.freetalklive.com.
We're still not sure why you'd want to watch, but our video feed is streaming nightly for free at cam.freetalklive.com.
It is Free Talk Live. Join us, take control of the airwaves, talk about whatever is on your mind. 603-283-6160 is the number to do that. With you in the studio tonight, it's Aria,
Joa,
and Peakless Mountaineer.
And we mentioned Forkfest earlier. Are either of you going to it?
Oh, I'll definitely be going to Forkfest. I'm not sure about Porkfest yet.
Will you be at Forkfest concurrent with the Porcupine Freedom Festival?
Well, that's one thing. I don't know if I'm going to Porkfest.
Well, I'm...
Now, do you mean that in a time sense?
Yes, that's what I'm trying to figure out.
I get it.
Because Forkfest is, I mean,
it's whenever I say it is.
Yes.
Oh, right, yeah. I'm going during, it just happens to be at the same time as Porkfest. I might be there for Forkfest.
Well, if
I will be
it's
attending.
complicated.
I will be attending both festivals, both in duration and in abstract concept. Like I actually bought my Porkfest ticket, which you don't have to, but
you
I
have
did.
to buy those tickets.
Well, you have to buy a ticket if you want to attend any of the conventions or any of the functions or any of the stuff they do for the Porcupine Freedom Festival. You don't have to buy a ticket to be at Rogers Campground anymore.
Right.
But I didn't buy a ticket. As it happens, I'm going to be speaking at the Porcupine Freedom Festival this year, so I have a free ticket.
That's
I
awesome.
think. I assume they're not going to say, hey, no, you can't come here, considering they invited me to come there. I'm actually going to be doing a panel Saturday morning, I think at 11 a.m. I have to check. I'm not exactly sure what time. It was 10, but we're trying to move it to 11 because anyone who knows me knows that 10 in the morning is very, very early for me, and I'm not really mentally fit generally to give a presentation at the time, but not about how the case against the Crypto 6, but about how the ramifications of the case are going to affect cryptocurrency. So come to the Porcupine Freedom Festival, check it out. Come hang out with us at Forkfest, though, which I consider to be June the 21st through July the 4th. I'll be there the entire time. We'll be doing Free Talk Live there. So it's good to know that you're going to be there because I may have to, pull you over and be like, hey, come join me on the show for a little while or whatever. So come check it out. Forkfest.party is the website for that. Or for I don't know the website of the Porcupine Freedom Festival. I assume it's porkfest.com. I don't know.
Yes, I assume so.
But check it out, forkfest.party. That's F-O-R-K fest.party because it's a fork of the Porcupine Freedom Festival. And if you look at it historically, we forked from them and then we sort of swallowed them, where the Porcupine Freedom Festival is now this thing that happens at Forkfest.
And
if you really want to get into the specifics.
Well, and I'm sincerely hoping that the cryptocurrency forks will do the exact same thing and swallow their maker.
Absolutely. So check it out. Forkfest.party is the website. Now, we were talking about consciousness and things like that. It raises an interesting question. Physicists are looking for what they call the M theory, the mother of all theories. The theory that's going to allow them to explain everything. But there's an issue. If everything in the universe is explainable scientifically and chemically and electronically, from A to B to C, they can figure it out. Why would that theory dictate that we would ever be able to discover it?
Why wouldn't it?
Why would it? I mean, it's not a matter of why would it why wouldn't it? It's a matter of we don't know whether or not it's even... If there is a single theory that describes everything that ever happened and everything that ever will happen, then we don't know. If that theory decides that we'll never discover it, then we'll never discover it. We don't know whether or not humans have free will.
So we do know what happens when you treat them as if they don't, though.
Do we?
That's a good point.
So if you treat porcupines as if they have no quills, it goes poorly.
Sure.
When you treat humans as if they have no free will, as if they are merely automatons, or automata, I guess, it does not go well. Like, if I start treating you as if you can't actually make conscious choices, if I just, try to push your buttons as a robot and manipulate you into things, it doesn't go well. I mean... Sure,
but that's because... that could easily be because I've been programmed to give that output to that specific input, to make it not go well, to carry on this illusion that I have free will.
To be fair, I'm not certain, beyond a shadow of a doubt, that you have any consciousness whatsoever. I just think it's a really good bet.
Yeah, I would agree. And I think free will is probably... I don't know whether or not we have free will, but I'm going to believe I do because I want to. And maybe I don't have any choice but to believe that because I don't have free will. But hey, as far as I can tell, I want to believe in free will, so I'm going to believe in free will.
Well, how many choices have you made up to this point?
Who knows? How many of them were actually choices? Maybe I never had any choice.
I like a lot of practicality. So if I start behaving as if there is no universe and you kick me in the shin, I have a problem. So I can't. Okay, so I can't actually operate in a way as if there is no universe. So since I can't...
Well, you can't operate within the universe as though there's no universe.
Well, if there isn't one, then I couldn't do it anyway.
Well, you could, but it would be like playing a video game and believing that video game to be real.
Well, I'll tell you one thing I know for sure is real. Pain. Pain is absolutely, certainly, unquestionably, beyond a shadow of a doubt.
What about
real.
ghost limbs?
But those are wait a second, those are just signals being interpreted by your brain.
That is a theory. That is a theory of what that is.
Well, sever your spinal cord and let me, you know.
Hold on. Ghost limbs prove that it's a thing. I mean, there are people, veterans, who have lost limbs and who can still feel pain from those limbs, even though the limb is not there.
Indeed, the limb is not there and the pain is still real.
Because it's just a signal in their brain.
That's true. The pain is still there and the limb is not. And have you seen like how they tend to treat like if you get your hand cut off, they'll put your other hand in sort of a mirror box so that you can unclench your still existing hand? It's so cool.
I've not seen that.
Yeah. Like it will usually feel as if your hand is clenched and you cannot ever unclench it because it's in that sort of feedback loop. So they'll have you put both of your arms into a little box with a little mirror set up so that you can look at where your hand would be, and it's a reflection of your still existing hand. And you can, of course, unclench your still existing hand, and it looks like you're unclenching your non-existent hand, and it alleviates the pain.
And from there, your brain operates as though your missing hand is unclenched. The human body's fascinating, man. And the human brain it's fascinating because it's the only organ ever known that studies itself.
Yeah.
That's mind-blowing.
Yeah, our nervous system is the most complicated thing in the entire universe. Like for example, there are more potential nervous connections in your brain than there are atoms in the universe. And that's it's basically a problem of exponential growth. So like nerve A to nerve B is one connection, but nerve A to nerve B to nerve C is a different connection. And nerve A to nerve B to nerve D is yet another connection. So you end up with, and you know, what is it, like 6 billion different nerve cells. So you end up with more potential nervous pathways than there are atoms in the known universe.
Well, as someone who has spent more hours than I care to think about trying to figure out permutations of a password, I know all about exponential problems. It seems so simple, and then you sit down to think about it, and you're like, there are at least 300,000 variations of this. I've made it through like 100.
Yeah.
This is going to take some time.
Yeah. Language is such a wild thing. I mean, it is as close to an organism as a definitely not organism can get, as far as I can tell.
Well, it's the product of organisms, so I would expect it to evolve in the same way that the evolving organisms do. You know, we didn't just reach this plateau and stop evolving. It was largely thanks to communication that we started working together in the first place. As our communication methods evolve, we should, in theory, get better at working together to build a better world. But first, we have to get past this egotistical nonsense that we are the only ones who are right, and we should control everyone else because they're wrong and it's for their own good, which is how far too many people operate.
It's not an app on your phone. Sorry. Like, that's how they're doing it now.
Well, and one of the ways that we can effectively do that is by acknowledging each other's free will, existent or not, and then, as an extension of that, acknowledging our property rights from it.
Not just acknowledge their free will, but their right to choose to act in accordance with their free will as long as they don't harm anyone in doing that.
Indeed.
I wish we could all recognize that. You know, just live in love, just leave people alone.
Who knows what we could accomplish if we started doing that?
I mean, if they're not hurting you, man, just leave them be. 603-283-6160. It's Free Talk Live. You can join the conversation. 603-283-6160.
I'm grateful to have heard from some of our satellite listeners recently. I appreciate knowing that people are out there who like what we do and are willing to support it financially. LRN.FM's free-to-air satellite feeds blanket most of 2 continents. It was my goal to put our channel there so people without internet could receive our programs and feed pirate radio stations. We started a fundraiser on Patreon a few years ago to back the satellite channels. I recently announced that I was considering canceling the feeds, and donations increased from 15 to 20% of our costs, which are around $1,000 per month. That's a good start, and to incentivize more contributions, the Shire Free Church will be matching every dollar. Can we reach $500 per month? With your help, we can. You can join our satellite fundraiser for just $2 a month at fund.lrn.fm. If we raise enough to keep both of the channels on the air, awesome. If we raise more, I'll add more channels. If not, we can shut them down and go internet only. It's up to you. Thank you for your support. fund.lrn.fm.
Is oral health important to you? If you don't like your own teeth, fresh breath, or kissing people, then by all means stop listening. Several years ago, I met Jessica Armand, founder and CEO of My Magic Mud, and I became passionate about the product that she created and never want to live without it. It's clinically proven to whiten teeth, but I find it does much more. They want you to love My Magic Mud as much as I do, so they're giving you a money-back guarantee plus 20% off. Go to mymagicmud.com and use coupon code FTL20 at checkout. mymagicmud.com, FTL20.
There are lots of ways to listen to Free Talk Live. Our podcast has been around since podcasts began, and now the FTL feed is loaded with content besides our full show archives. Did you know that we make it easy for you to customize your podcast subscriptions? We have different feeds, one that includes only our full shows, one with just the Daily Digest, and our main feed that includes everything. You decide what you listen to. It's quick and easy to customize your feeds at feeds.freetalklive.com. That's feeds.freetalklive.com. The Free State Project has reached its goal of 20,000 liberty lovers who've pledged to move to New Hampshire and get active to achieve liberty in our lifetime. Perhaps you're trying to figure out what part of New Hampshire should be your destination. If so, consider Keene. You'll find more than 150 reasons to move to Keene at move.freekeene.com. Keene is famous for its historic, publicity-generating activism, as well as being the liberty media capital of the world. It's home to freekeene.com, New Hampshire's destination for liberty activism, news, and opinion. For years, we've been compiling over 150 reasons to move to Keene at move.freekeene.com, where you'll learn about some of what's happening here and what makes Keene a great place to live. If you love liberty, you'll probably enjoy anywhere you end up in the Shire. But do your due diligence first. Please visit move.freekeene.com for the full list of over 150 reasons to move to Keene. That's move.freekeene.com. What if you want to hear the latest episode of Free Talk Live, but all you have is your phone, you forgot to download our archive, and you have no data connection? You can call our Listen line at 641-793-0191. That's a long-distance number, so you may incur charges. If not, listen as long as you want. 641-793-0191. The Free Talk Live Listen line, 641-793-0191.
There are basically two types of advertising, direct response and branding. Radio's great for direct response with its low cost to listener ratio, but audio can't be beat for branding, which is a longer-term endeavor. You want to be the first thing that someone thinks of when they think about your product or service. If you have a local business that you want kept top of mind in your community, call the station. If you need national reach, Free Talk Live's got around 200 radio stations, millions of monthly listening sessions, can suit all budgets, and if we don't think we're right for you, we'll tell you. Email me, mark@freetalklive.com.
Yep, we still do email. Drop your email address in the entry box at freetalklive.com, and you'll be kept in the loop with Free Talk Live.
It's Free Talk Live, 603-283-6160. You can take control of the airwaves and talk about whatever is on your mind. And I was actually going to just plug the AMP program, because, I mean, that's what we do here on Free Talk Live. We provide anyone with a working phone the ability to express their opinion on national radio on more than 200 radio stations. But it just occurred to me that I could pull that up if I wanted to go through the effort, but it's far faster and easier to text Bonnie and be like, hey, who's tonight's amplifier during the next break, and do it later. But anyway, with you tonight, it's Aria.
And Joa.
And Peakless Mountaineer.
Yeah, we're trying to figure out now, right, like for the last year and a half, I've been the one who has been sending the logs where they needed to go and then filing them away accordingly. But all of that was being done at the studio. And now there are 2 studios, and I can't go to that one. So what do we do about these affidavits and these logs and stuff now? Filing them electronically isn't ideal. So I bought a printer scanner today.
Ooh.
Because it's going to be necessary for me to be able to print these things, scan them, and file them away. So it's just bizarre growing pains that I didn't expect, like the giant clock on the wall behind me. Just never occurred to me, hey, maybe we should have a clock out here. Because generally when I'm out here, prior to tonight at least, I was just hanging out and didn't really care what time it was. But now it suddenly matters. There should be a clock out here. Duh. Didn't think about that.
Right. Meet your new file manager. It's a cabinet.
Yeah. Joa asked, hey, do you have any bottles of water? I was like, oh, yeah, I should. And what's amazing is I normally do get auto deliveries from Amazon of 2 24 packs of water every single month. But because of the FBI seizing all of my debit cards and having to replace them, I haven't renewed that. And over the last 80 days or whatever, however long it's been, I ended up consuming all of those bottles of water that I had built up. So got to get back on that. I mean, especially now that, there's reasons for me to actually maintain a water supply, because the water here in Keene, it sucks. It's full of air. It's full of all sorts of minerals and crap that I don't like. And it doesn't taste very good.
Yeah, I turned down your faucet water.
I could solve all of these problems with a water filter. However, I never had any use for them, because me and my cats just drank bottled water because it was easy and expedient. But now, so just little things like that, things that you don't expect to be issues.
Turns out when thugs steal everything that you own, it causes a couple of inconveniences.
Many inconveniences, yes. Basically, 4 days is the amount of time I had to get all of this together and ready for production. And I think it went well.
Yeah.
I mean, there's still some tweaking to be done. But
I'm impressed.
Hey, here we are.
Yeah. I mean, we're doing a show at the very least and talking philosophy, which isn't surprising because it's the 3 of us, and that tends to be how these shows go when it's the 3 of us. So we were talking, before we got into that, we were talking about thought crime. And this new attempt by some government agency to...
Department of Homeland Security, no less.
Of course. I mean, who else would determine thought crime?
Right.
So what do they want to do exactly?
Building on Biden-Harris administration's commitment to combating all forms of terrorism and targeted violence.
And keeping in mind that this is just, 5 months after someone within the Biden administration said, quote, even libertarians when talking about alleged threats to national security.
Yeah, my first thought is, targeted violence, like breaking in someone's door, breaking their window, chaining a half-naked girl to a car, things like that.
That would certainly qualify as violence.
And targeted it was. Anyway, on combating all forms of terrorism and targeted violence, Secretary of Homeland Security Alejandro N. Mayorkas announced...
Oh, well, it's okay. He's not white, so it's not oppression.
Yeah. Well, you don't know that.
Well, he's not white, so by definition, it can't be oppression.
Well, you don't know that he's not white, but he definitely doesn't sound white on paper.
Oh, that's true. I assumed his race.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I assumed what his race wasn't. But to be fair,
Wait, is there a twist in this article?
I don't know too many white people named Alejandro.
That's true. That's true.
Not saying it's impossible.
Well,
but nope. If he is white, it's cultural appropriation.
Well, and that's a point of contention. Are Hispanics white? Because according to the forum, you are a non-white Hispanic or a non-Hispanic white, or
I don't know, man.
Technically,
I mean, race is an illusion anyway.
I'm actually developing my own Hispanicism.
Okay.
I am going to speak Spanish, and as soon as I do, I technically count as Hispanic.
Yeah, I can see it coming out, and maybe the color of your skin's changing, and yeah, we can accept you now as not having white privilege.
I'm learning the words to de colores. Anyway. Alejandro N. Mayorkas announced today that DHS has established a new Center for Prevention Programs and Partnerships, CP3, to improve the department's ability to combat terrorism and targeted violence, consistent with privacy protections, civil rights, civil liberties, and other applicable laws.
Yeah, none of that part
I'll
is true.
just bet.
Oh, yeah, like the federal government hasn't funded terrorists in the past, and now they're trying to prevent their terrorist fundings?
Well, maybe they will actually realize, the federal government has this tendency to create terrorist organizations, and they'll arrest themselves before they do it again.
It's like, we need to remind the public why they need us. So we're going to create terrorism, and then we're going to create the war on terrorism.
I mean, that is what they do, right? And they did it repeatedly to white nationalists over the last several years during the Trump administration, where they would take someone who probably would never actually engage in any sort of hostile act, and they would just have an undercover agent just give him ideas and just keep pushing him to the edge, providing him with materials, and then suddenly, the FBI thwarted this terror plot that they conceived, they planned, they put there.
And they developed a terrorist, and they have developed greater and greater technology of creating domestic terrorists to arrest them. It's absolutely mind-boggling. They've gotten better and better and better at turning an ordinary person into a terrorist and then arresting them.
Yes.
And now they don't have to do that. Because they were, waiting until you took their fake bomb to put somewhere and then arresting you. Now they'll just figure out that you're going to do that, and we can arrest you without all that extra manpower.
Because by then, I mean, they've had so long to work on this, they just figured out ways to manipulate people to that extent. And you got to wonder, what is the federal government if what it's doing out there right now is manipulating people into being quote-unquote terrorists? That's not an organization that is operating for the good of you or anyone else or humanity. They're operating on the good of their own. They're trying to justify their existence.
Yep. See, they're just trying to redefine the law just slightly enough so they can go after another group of people. I feel like that's what they're doing. They didn't have the angle. They're creating an angle.
So you think there were people that they couldn't quite go after well enough before because, they didn't quite do anything that we can point at. So we're just going to make pre-crime.
Yeah, I mean, they haven't really cared about that since, the RICO Act, and they could just charge people with conspiracy.
Right.
I mean, they've used that to great effect. And it's nonsense, obviously. You don't have to actually commit any crime. You don't even have to actually conspire to commit any crime. You just have to be within the vicinity of someone who offhandedly suggests doing something that may or may not be illegal. Suddenly, you're being charged with conspiracy.
Yeah, and don't think this is the last time they're going to do this. They're going to reach a little bit further later on. So they're just going to change up the method of how they're trying to say it, how they're trying to convey it to the public, and why they need these new laws.
Well, and my thought is, as far as conspiracy goes, what is their technical job? Like, technically the job of a politician, they get together with other politicians, and they talk about what would happen if we did this thing that is currently illegal. What would be the effects of this thing that is not legal now? And then they figure out whether or not they should do that. That sounds pretty much exactly like a conspiracy.
Well, yes, but they're the state. I mean, they're the gods, and we're the subjects. The rules that the gods hand down to us to obey don't apply to the gods.
Well, government hates competition, right? So if they're doing the things that they don't want us to do, they're going to create that monopoly and try to alleviate the problem.
Well, obviously,
in their eyes.
Because they don't want us to be free, they want us to be subjects.
Right.
Well, unfortunately for us, poor subjects, they've given themselves the power of mind reading. Now they can tell what is in your brain and what you will do and haven't done yet.
Minority Report.
And to make matters even worse, there are tech companies working on literal mind-reading technology. If there was ever a piece of technology we needed to avoid, that's it. Please, people, 603-283-6160.
Tired of cancel culture? Sick of mega tech corporations holding an axe over your head? Join the LRN.FM Matrix chat server. It's self-hosted, so no one else can tell us what to do or say. Don't like the existing channels? You can make your own. You can even connect into some of our channels from other Matrix servers. It's federated. For the full LRN.FM Matrix experience, though, you should join our server via the step-by-step instructions at chat.lrn.fm. Chat.lrn.fm.
Do you feel like your nation, state, or community no longer holds your values? Have you dreamt of a place where people agree that liberty is important and are free to pursue their projects so long as they respect the property of others? There are many people just like you that are discovering freeprivatecities.com. Their social media links are at the upper right of the page at freeprivatecities.com. All skill levels will be needed when the first of the Free Private Cities opens. It's sooner than you think. Stop arguing and build. freeprivatecities.com.
Looking for a great real estate investment? Consider New Hampshire, which is ground zero for the Liberty Movement. Your first call should be to Mark Worden from Porcupine Real Estate. He's more than just a real estate agent. He's your New Hampshire concierge. Where are the best places to live? Do you want farm, city, the burbs, or forest? Do you want a duplex or multifamily building so that renters pay your mortgage? There are homes in all price ranges in New Hampshire, and Mark can help with financing too. Invest in liberty and property. Mark Worden can help.
PorcupineRealEstate.com.
Some of you asked, and now we've delivered. LRN.FM's live Keene, New Hampshire studio shows are now streamed in HD on Twitch. Visit our channel at twitch.lrn.fm and give it a follow. If you have Amazon Prime, you get one free subscription on Twitch. If you use it on our channel, Twitch will give LRN.FM a monthly piece of your Prime subscription cost. So please watch, follow, share, and subscribe to twitch.lrn.fm. That's twitch.lrn.fm.
You're listening to the live edition of Free Talk Live. Hour number 3 is next after the news here on the Liberty Radio Network at LRN.FM.
No suspects in South Florida. I'm Pam Puso, Fox News. But the investigation is intensifying following a mass shooting this weekend in the Miami area.
As Miami police were holding a press conference on Memorial Day, a man interrupted the department's director, yelling that his child was killed. He was the father of one of the 26-year-old men killed outside a rap concert venue just after midnight.
We have intelligence information that this resulted from an ongoing rivalry from two different groups.
Miami Police Major Jorge Aguia says aside from the 2 killed, 3 others were critically injured. Police released surveillance footage showing 3 people wearing masks, holding firearms, running out of a white SUV, then moments later running back to the car. The vehicle, which was reported stolen a couple of weeks ago, was found submerged in a nearby canal.
Fox's Jessica Rosenthal. There was panic at a mall in Dallas after shoppers thought someone started shooting. Police say what really happened was that a man banged a skateboard on the ground, then made hand gestures to make it look like he had a gun. The man was apprehended. Police say he did not have a gun. A solemn Memorial Day speech at Arlington National Cemetery was delivered by President Biden, who placed a wreath at the tomb of the unknown soldier. The president challenged Americans to carry on the defense of democracy. As the nation emerges from COVID-19 restrictions, many of us were on the move this weekend.
Last year at this time, heading into summer, the TSA says that roughly 344,000 passengers were being screened across the nation's airports. Now, flash forward to today, that number is now at around 2 million.
Fox's Casey Stiegel. The TSA hopes to hire 6,000 new agents by Labor Day. America's listening to Fox News. The days could be numbered for Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu as his political enemies discuss joining forces.
The coalition to oust Netanyahu was announced on Sunday. They're right-wing, centrist, and left-wing politicians with little in common other than their opposition to Netanyahu. They're still shy of a majority in the Israeli parliament. If the anti-Netanyahu coalition fails to reach a majority by Wednesday, Israel could head to a 5th round of elections in 2 years.
Fox's Mike Tobin. Authorities investigating illegal gun sales have stumbled upon a treasure trove in Connecticut. Stolen firearms, magazines, ammunition, and drugs were found in an apartment in New Britain, and 3 men have been arrested. They're accused of taking part in a scheme to traffic stolen guns from Florida to Connecticut. Throughout the pandemic, gun sales in the U.S. hit several highs, and now, even as COVID-19 cases decline, the desire to obtain firearms is still there.
Those who follow gun buying usually see spikes in election years and after crimes that get lots of media attention. The New York Times reports background checks this spring, an indicator of potential sales because the government doesn't track gun purchases, topped 1.2 million. That surpasses the 1 million high mark of last year. The buyers included repeat purchasers as well as first-time gun owners. This flurry of sales comes in the midst of several deadly mass shootings and a widening divide in Washington over gun control legislation. Gernal Scott, Fox News.
There's been an upset at the French Open, but not on the tennis court. Naomi Osaka of Japan has withdrawn, saying on Twitter that it's the best thing for the tournament. Osaka had been fined by tennis officials after boycotting interviews with the press. She says the media blackout was meant to prioritize her mental health. Pam Puso, Fox News.
This is Michael Dean from the Freedom Fiends. I've run websites since 1996 and have used over a dozen web hosts in that time. AgristHosting.com is the only one that hasn't broken my heart. Agrist Hosting's uptime and service is stellar, and their DDoS mitigation is the best I've seen. That's important because if you tell the truth in this world, you'll ruffle feathers. And some people will try dirty tricks to silence your voice. No matter what the haters hit us with, Agrist Hosting keeps our websites online. If you have a mission-critical commercial presence or a world-changing activism site, you cannot tolerate any skullduggery. So go with agristhosting.com. Have a WordPress or blog site, but you're not satisfied with performance or uptime? Or just want raw hosting? Want to pay with Bitcoin? Agrist Hosting specializes in high-performance hosting with personalized service. Go to agristhosting.com and click on the button that says Get Hosted. That's agristhosting.com.
The Total Loser's corpse contained no traces of drugs or alcohol, and a superstitious Delta Airlines adds busty mermaids to its plane noses. My friend, you look like you are in need of the world's finest internet news summaries. Please come in and warm yourself by the fire of knowledge. This is the Onion Week in Review. A new law passed in Colorado this week will allow residents with a doctor's prescription to purchase medicinal fireworks, saying that those in need of stargazers, firecrackers, and Galleria highlights now need only obtain a doctor's prescription. State officials expressed hope that the law would ease the suffering of those in need of huge, dazzling explosions. And in this week's op-ed pages, a man notes that, like it or not, we all die, then get dug up and molested. In other news, white male privilege is squandered on a job at Best Buy, and a local TCBY has missed the past 2 logo changes. Well, that's it for now. Goodbyes are bittersweet, my love, so I'll only tell you, for more, keep checking theonion.com.
This is the Onion News Network.
Free Talk Live.
As Lee just pointed out, welcome to Free Talk Get a Life. There's been an argument going on D-Live for like the better part of 2 hours of just these two people who have nothing better to do with their lives than watch videos of me and just endlessly criticize me. I just can't imagine how they've let me just envelop their brains to that level where they just passionately hate me and can't stand me, yet they just can't click that little X to make me go away. Because whether they click that X or not, I'm still in their heads. And it's clearly driving them crazy. Join it at dlive.freetalklive.com.
Oh, they love it. They love trolling. That's what they like to do.
Well, they're not very good at it. I ended up unblocking them because it was causing some confusion. It didn't block them from chatting. It just blocked me from having to see it because I don't really care what they have to say because I'm doing a show and they're sitting there being angry. I've got better things to do with my life than...
Well, that was a good solution.
It was. But it caused confusion on the back end, so it was...
You could do a thing with your life, or you could criticize people who are actually doing a thing with their lives.
One would think. Now, we were talking about thought crime, and it reminded me...
And who are we?
We are Free Talk Live.
Arya, Joa, and Peakless Mountaineer.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
We were talking, while we were out there in the break, the conversation we were having about thought crime reminded me that, Futurama did an episode essentially about this, where they had this artificial intelligence that was constantly predicting crimes that were going to happen. And they would arrest the person before the crime occurred. And because the AI was good enough or whatever, it was airtight that they were guilty or whatever. And then the two of you started talking about Rick and Morty.
Yeah.
And having a discussion about that and a bit of a disagreement.
Well, I was hoping that Futurama would merge with Rick and Morty. That's how it started. But
You were hoping they would merge? What
well,
would that
because
look
so
like?
that way it brings back Futurama. And I know they're not going to bring it back, but maybe they could do cameos or something. But
if they're going to bring it back like they did on Comedy Central, I would rather them just not. Just leave it alone. The Comedy Central episodes, they weren't bad, but they also weren't good. They were watchable, but that's about all I can say about them.
Yeah.
I would have been happier if the series had ended with the 4 movies, which were really good, except for the last one, which was really confusing in that it seemed to be very hostile to LGBTQ people. It spent the better part of the movie arguing about pronouns and trashing polygamy and polyamory as something that just cannot possibly be workable.
Well, I thought if it's the one I'm thinking of, didn't they depict polyamory and polygamy as a heavenly state? I mean, wasn't the
Okay,
paradise
that's a fair
of the
point.
alternate universe is, oh, look, now just everyone's married to everyone else because we're all married to God, I guess.
Okay, fair point. I didn't consider that aspect of it.
All right, back on the pile.
So once they left our universe and they left their cares and jealousy and stuff behind, it seemed to work just fine. Which, obviously, jealousy and stuff like that is the biggest hurdle to polyamory relationships. So I guess it was fairer to them in that regard. But still, the movie spent way too much time...
It's a genticle!
...arguing about pronouns. And it's like...
I'm yet to
can
see
you
these
not?
movies, so...
Oh, it's not bad. It's pretty good, other than the constant arguing about pronouns and what they're going to call this genderless tentacle monster.
Well, I think that if a person is going to consider themselves a they should do so in the Queen of England sense of the word. We ourselves.
So if they're going to consider themselves to be plural, they need to stick with that.
Yeah, you may as well, go whole hog.
I don't particularly care for the usage of they as a genderless pronoun, but I don't object to it either. I mean, it's something we all do. If we don't know the gender of the person we're talking about, we just sort of innately use they in the first place.
Well, it's been a really weird mutation of our language. I mean, we were talking earlier about how organic and complex language tends to be. And so once upon a time, there actually was a specific word for male human, and that word was were. And the only living version of that is in werewolf, which means literally man-wolf.
Right.
Now, man actually didn't mean male human, it just meant human.
But now it means male human.
Which is just weird. I mean, that's what people tend to assume, but that is not... We just actually did not care. We do care if you can have kids, we don't care if you can't.
Basically, there's better things to care about than argue about, gender pronouns.
I certainly find that there are better things to argue about. Another show that I'm a really big fan of is Aqua Teen Hunger Force. So I joined this S-Posting Aqua Teen Hunger Force group a few weeks ago, and then it exploded because someone posted some, you better respect my trans homies or your pronouns are going to be was, were, and just the transphobes came out, and then the trans supporters came out, and every single trans person in there was like, can we just have an Aqua Teen Hunger Force group that doesn't devolve into arguing about our existence, please? Can we please just do that? But no.
And as far as pronouns go, technically speaking, and I don't know how many people care about this, but technically speaking, he is actually the neuter pronoun, which does give you some really weird sentences that are technically accurate, like, man, like all mammals, nurses his young. Technically accurate sounds absolutely bizarre.
I don't know if it's, as you were talking about, language evolves, so it's no longer technically accurate, but there's a time where it was.
Well, and that's one of the issues, like, what does literally mean?
I hate the word literally because it's the word that people use more often than not, and it's not literal when they say it. Like, oh, I literally died, but you literally didn't. So maybe start using the word literally, and then we can have a conversation.
Well, if they say I literally died, you should scream and say, I'm seeing ghosts.
That would be a good response for that.
Right?
I feel like the language has definitely been trained out of us too in the public schools. Like, so like when you get pulled over, it's like, can I see your ID? Of course you can. But then it's like, then he's like,
well, when you get pulled over,
the vehicle and all that stuff, and it's like, no, you should have said, may I see it, or I have to see your ID, or something to the effect where it's not questioning my abilities. And it's like, we all know it's coming from public schools, why he asked it that way. And can you ask properly?
Well,
look, if a
I
cop
don't
pulls me
know
over,
one that's ever asked that nicely. Usually it's just license and registration.
Yeah, if a cop pulls me over and says, may I see your ID, I'm honestly not going to know how to respond. I can say no?
But
right, sure.
You're asking me for permission?
Right.
Like you're some kind of public servant, and I'm people? But
I will say, if you're driving in New Hampshire, you do have to present your ID, but I don't think there's any other circumstances where you have to say yes to that.
No, you do not. Yep, that's correct.
Well, and New Hampshire is one of the places where they don't say license, registration, and insurance.
However, they can hold you.
For the first time in my life, I actually am driving insured vehicles because I care about them, and it would affect my life if they, wrecked and were destroyed. But like when I lived in Mississippi, I never had insurance, and it was required there, so it was always just a matter of finding the insurance company that gave you an insurance card that was good for a year, paying them for 1 month, and then letting it lapse.
Well, back in the day, you used to be able to go to, say, bondsmen's or at pawn shops and that sort of thing, and they would. If you got into an accident, you go to them like, I have to pay off this, restitution for this accident I caused, and they'd give you a percentage on top of the loan, and you get it. And you didn't need car insurance. Now it's like, oh, pawn shop stopped doing this, so now we're going to have to force you to have car insurance.
Well, as I understand it, you're not actually legally required to have car insurance. You just have to have proof of financial liability, that you can afford to pay for the injuries or whatever that you may cause. Insurance is the way that most people do that, but presumably, if you're a millionaire, you can just be like, hey, yeah, here's my bank statement. I got this covered, or whatever.
Right.
I don't know that. That's what I've been told, because obviously no government has the right to say, hey, no, yeah, you have to give money to these private companies. Of course, then the Affordable Care Act came along, and they essentially did that. But they created this loophole where if you don't want to, that's okay. You can just pay a fine instead. And the fine is used to pay those private companies. So it's all a bunch of nonsense, and the government has decided that they can tell you what you have to buy.
Well, force you to have liability is wrong, too. It's force.
And they'll arrest you if you don't comply, and they'll kill you if you don't submit to the arrest. Ultimately, everything, as we talked about, the cops will kill you over. 603-283-6160. It's Free Talk Live.
The Terran Federation and the Terran League have been killing each other for decades. Sheltered, wealthy, and light years from the threat, the members of the 500 have no interest in changing that. When Rear Admiral Terrence Murphy is given governorship of a backwater system, a risk-free path to wealth and power is his for the taking. But Murphy is a man of honor, duty, and responsibility. He intends to stop the killing, whatever the cost. Governor, by David Weber and Richard Fox, from BaneBooks.com.
Are you tired of governments around the world killing innocent people? Stop using their money. There is an alternative. Bitcoin is a stateless, free market, non-political currency. Bitcoin is money that cannot be inflated or controlled by any state. By continuing to use their money, you're perpetuating the killing. Stop doing it. You have an incredible alternative available to you now. Learn it, use it, spread it. Get started with Bitcoin at Bitcoin.com. It's Bitcoin.com.
If you want to know the latest about Free Talk Live before we go on the air, all you need to decide is how you want it delivered. It's your choice. Visit news.freetalklive.com to receive our usually weekly news updates by email. Plus, we have a Twitter account at twitter.freetalklive.com, and you can follow us on the decentralized Mastodon platform at toot.freetalklive.com. So please follow us at toot.freetalklive.com and sign up for our emails at news.freetalklive.com.
Do you feel like your nation, state, or community no longer holds your values? Have you dreamt of a place where people agree that liberty is important and are free to pursue their projects so long as they respect the property of others? There are many people just like you that are discovering freeprivatecities.com. Their social media links are at the upper right of the page at freeprivatecities.com. All skill levels will be needed when the first of the Free Private Cities opens. It's sooner than you think. Stop arguing and build. freeprivatecities.com.
We have some good news. The indictments against Ross Ulbricht in the District of Maryland were dismissed with prejudice, meaning they can never be refiled. This is especially good because those indictments contain the only charge ever made that Ross engaged in murder for hire. This was a serious allegation that Ross Ulbricht denies. It was never prosecuted or ruled on by a jury, but was trumpeted by the federal government and the media as if it were proven fact. The Maryland court held these indictments for almost 5 years, poisoning Ross's case and leaving him under a cloud of unproven allegations. As explained in Ross's appeal to the Supreme Court, the fact that the judge used these allegations to give Ross a draconian sentence of double life without parole violated his Sixth Amendment right to a jury trial. Judges are required to issue sentences based on convictions decided by a jury, not unproven allegations never even charged at trial. Although this is a positive development, the dropped indictment will not set Ross free. Now, a presidential pardon is Ross's only hope of freedom. Sign the petition at freeross.org. freeross.org.
The LRN.FM social media channels have been revamped. We've eliminated Facebook and focused on other platforms like Twitter and Mastodon, the decentralized alternative to Twitter. On our accounts, you'll find posts from multiple LRN.FM show hosts together in one place. Follow us on Twitter at twitter.lrn.fm, or better yet, move to the decentralized Mastodon social media platform at toot.lrn.fm, toot.lrn.fm. I think you'll like it.
Are you tired of governments murdering people around the world? Stop using their money. There is an alternative. Bitcoin is a stateless, free market, non-political currency. Bitcoin cannot be inflated or controlled by any government. By using their money, you are helping the state. Stop doing it! You have an incredible alternative available now. Learn it, use it, spread it. Get started with Bitcoin at bitcoin.com. That's bitcoin.com.
Got Telegram? You can follow our channel there and discuss show prep with other listeners at telegram.freetalklive.com.
It's Free Talk Live, 603-283-6160 if you want to join the discussion. And we actually have a producer now, it would seem, and she actually sent me the information I needed about the amplifier that I had already forgotten about. It's Ellen. Ellen is tonight's amplifier. She's a gold level amplifier, which means she chooses to give $10 per month to the AMP program. And that's more than what we ask. We only ask $5 per month. It's money that is used strictly to advertise, market, and promote Free Talk Live. So if you like the show, if you like this idea of being able to call a show and have your voice, your opinions heard on 200-ish, it may be below 200 at this point, I don't keep track of it that closely, radio stations throughout the United States and on sub-Saharan Africa and Asia and just on the internet in general, then supporting Free Talk Live through the AMP program is the best way to do that. You can find it at amp.freetalklive.com. Ellen, thank you so much for the contributions. We hope you're enjoying the show. We hope you're enjoying the changes that are occurring, not really by design or by choice. I would much rather be at the LRN studio doing this.
You know what they say, necessity is the mother of invention.
It is.
And the federal government is a real mother.
Well, they are a creator of necessity, at the very least. And you know, it's caused us to be more resilient than ever. Now, if the federal government decides they want to take down Free Talk Live, they can't just take out the LRN studio. They can't just take out Ian. They have to take out that studio, this studio, Ian, myself, Captain, and just everyone involved in the production of the show if they want to take down Free Talk Live. And as far as I can tell, that's kind of what they wanted to do by preventing any of us from having any contact with each other to do this First Amendment protected radio show that we've been doing, that I've been doing for the last 2 years, and that Ian has been doing for the better part of 20 years? I don't know.
Yeah, they claim that they are protecting your oh-so-important monetary system by making sure that these masterminds don't defraud people, when, as far as I can tell, every action that they're taking does two things. Number one, it slows down the adoption of cryptocurrency by taking out some people that don't have the know your customer requirement, so they're not spying on you through it. And most importantly, too, it makes it harder and harder to have this free speech outlet.
Well, absolutely. And I believe it was Ian's attorney who pointed this out. I'm not even going to get into that. But, there were absolutely KYC requirements in place.
Mhm.
There absolutely were, because that's the best way of preventing yourself from being defrauded by someone.
Well, right, but it's not one of those things where he, types it into a computer that the NSA is looking at.
Right. It was not shared with the government.
Exactly.
But, does the government have the right to do this in the first place? I don't know, and we're getting into topics there that I can't discuss. However, I said initially, following the raid and following my return to Free Talk Live, which took about a week because I wasn't sure whether or not it was even okay. It actually wasn't okay for me to go over there. I had to get permission for that, and then I finally did. And looking at the actual wiring situation and the state of the studio, I said, it's clear to me that they weren't trying to take out Free Talk Live. Because they flew a drone in through this window. They threw window weights through here, but they didn't damage any of the equipment in here. And they could have easily done that, quote, accidentally, but they damaged nothing. And this was because they weren't trying to use that brute force tactic, right? They were trying to use the political machine that they have in place to otherwise take down Free Talk Live, because it's too on the nose. Oh, they raided the studio and destroyed all of the studio equipment. They were clearly targeting Free Talk Live. But if they used the other method of preventing the host from,
We just happened to jerk out a couple of the wrong wires that made it impossible for you to do your job. We just happened to arrest all of your tech people at once.
Unfortunately, But let's go to the phones. We've got Revolt calling from Nuevo Mexico. Revolt, you're on Free Talk Live.
Revolting.
Ah, it is from New Mexico.
How revolting. Yes.
What's on your mind?
Nuevo Mexico.
I said Nuevo Mexico to you, the call screener, but apparently she doesn't speak Spanish. Although
I don't
should.
either.
She's from
I assumed Nuevo was a city. Sorry.
Well, there is a city that is Nuevo, or a state, or probably both, actually, a city and a state.
Now I seriously wonder if there is a Mexican town called Nuevo.
Well, Dave says
Nuevo
there is.
Leon. Nuevo Leon.
Nuevo
And
Leon.
Nuevo everything else, I'm sure, but Nuevo Leon comes to mind.
So what'd you call in tonight to discuss?
About revolting. Peakless.
Mm-hmm.
You mischaracterized my statement yesterday, so I'm calling to clarify that.
All right.
You had characterized my statement as that I was suggesting violence.
Oh,
How did
I
you
meant
draw
to.
that conclusion?
If it came across that way, I'm sorry. What I meant to specifically point out is that it seemed like the guy with the billboard. There was a guy with a sandwich board of what was it? When will you pussies finally revolt? And it seemed to me to be advocating a violent revolution.
Do you remember what that word is short for?
Pusillanimous.
Thank you.
Pusillanimous.
I just feel like we should point that out again.
It is
for
very
the,
important.
for the FCC censors out there who are
Well-
getting ready to send out a bunch of letters.
Well, and it's important to note that a lot of people think that not revolting in a violent way is a pusillanimous and weak-spirited way of living your life, and I think it could be nothing further from the truth. So you were
and
saying
the
that's
definition of.
yeah.
Pardon?
Yeah, I was saying. So you were saying that's not what you're advocating.
No, I did. I made a two-part statement. The first part of the statement is I was simply describing what I had seen in the form of what you just stated on the gentleman holding a handwritten cardboard sign saying what you said. I cited that, and then my own statement was about that I had stated that I no longer consent, and by stating that I no longer consent, I consider that part of my revolt. Now, that would not be violent, would it? If I state that I no longer consent to this government, that would not be violent, would it?
Quite so.
Well, I never
Okay.
consented
So
in
I
the
didn't-
first place.
Right. Yeah. No, they assume our consent. like our silence
Right.
was somehow giving them the power to, kidnap and torture us whenever they feel like, for whatever reason they decide is warranting it.
And if you try
Right.
to if you try to withdraw your consent, they will attack you and force you to submit. Now, I don't know about. Go ahead, David.
Well, I've already withdrawn my consent. My consent is completely withdrawn, so have they attacked me since I've withdrawn my consent?
Do you still have a valid driver's license?
Yeah.
Then you're still consenting.
Well, in all
Well,
fairness,
I disagree.
Well, no, that's a good question. So, what exactly does it count as consenting? So, like, I've been listening to some interesting programs that have pointed out that you actually have to be educated on the essence and fundamentals of our system in order to have consent, and consent is actually a form of commanding and controlling these so-called government thugs.
You're not wrong, and I have to retract what I said already, because consent given under threats of violence is by definition not consent anyway. So, yeah,
Right, so.
I was wrong.
Carl Watner, longtime proponent of a voluntary society, died last December. You may have seen his articles published on his website, voluntarist.com, in his newsletter, The Voluntarist, the Mises Institute, or elsewhere over the last 40 years. His newest book, I Must Speak Out, Volume 2, The Best of the Voluntarist, is now available via Liberty Under Attack Publications. This 430-page second volume spans the years of 2000 through 2020 and includes articles by Carl Watner, Hans Hermann Hoppe, Carl Hess, Benjamin Tucker, George H. Smith, Lysander Spooner, Pete Eyre, Joyce Brand, and many others. I Must Speak Out is for the newly initiated, the veteran voluntarist, or anywhere in between. Buy the book now at libertyunderattack.com/voluntarist. For more great content on building a voluntary society and for Carl's extensive archives, check out voluntarist.com.
On March 16th of this year, a joint government task force raided the New Hampshire Bitcoin Embassy, the Mighty Moose Mart, the homes of Aria DiMezzo, Andy and Renee Spinella, Colleen Fordham, a grandmother, and perhaps most relevant, the studios of Free Talk Live. The Crypto Six were arrested, most were released, but Rich Paul, also known as Nobody, and Ian Freeman both remain in custody. We've been in contact with attorneys that say no crime even appears to have been committed, but that didn't stop the Joint Thug Task Force from ripping out wires from the back of our broadcast stacks, taking Free Talk Live off the air, violating our and your First Amendment rights. You can go to thecrypto6.com and donate to fight against these charges. But as importantly, contact media and tell them about this outrage. This case is likely to set precedent for the use of cryptocurrency well into the future. Help our fight for liberty and financial freedom at thecrypto6.com.
So you've signed the Shire Society Declaration and are planning your move to New Hampshire to be around more liberty-oriented people. Next, sign up for the Shire Society Forum at forum.shiresociety.com. There are a bunch of people there who are already in the Shire, and they want to meet you. If you're already in the Shire physically, you should also come by the forums. Remember, not everyone uses Facebook. New people are signing up for the Shire Society Forum every month, so drop in and say hello at forum.shiresociety.com. There are lots of ways to listen to Free Talk Live. Our podcast has been around since podcasts began, and now the FTL feed is loaded with content besides our full show archives. Did you know that we make it easy for you to customize your podcast subscriptions? We have different feeds, one that includes only our full shows, one with just the Daily Digest, and our main feed that includes everything. You decide what you listen to. It's quick and easy to customize your feeds at feeds.freetalklive.com. That's feeds.freetalklive.com. Join liberty-minded voluntarists, anarchists, and libertarians from June 28th through July 4th for ForkFest 2021 at Rogers Campground in the beautiful White Mountains of New Hampshire. ForkFest happens the week after the Porcupine Freedom Festival, and ForkFest is decentralized, which means no one is in charge. That also means there's no ticket cost. Just reserve your camping, RV site, or motel room with Rogers Campground for June 28th through July 4th. Where better to celebrate Independence Day than around other freedom-loving activists in the Shire? You can relax and enjoy the camaraderie of like-minded people, or you can create whatever experience or event you'd like others to have. If you're planning an event for ForkFest, be sure to let others know in advance. You can connect with fellow ForkFesters via the unofficial Telegram chat or the ForkFest forum. Links to those are on the unofficial website, forkfest.party. Mark your calendar for June 28th through July 4th, 2021. We'll see you at forkfest.party.
Do you appreciate what we do? Help us advertise, market, and promote for just $5 a month at amp.freetalklive.com.
It's Free Talk Live, and I'm really glad that we have the ability to mute the mics through that last commercial break.
As am I. As am I.
However, I am operating under the assumption that the FBI agents monitoring me just got to hear all of those jokes that we were cracking at each other. So I hope they enjoyed that, and I hope they got some good laughs. At this point, I just sort of operate under the assumption that the FBI has either put bugs in here or has bugs on my phones, or just, in general, I'm bugged by the FBI.
Well, we literally live in the panopticon. It's exactly what George Orwell described as Big Brother. He's not always listening, but he could be at any time. And worse yet, there's a record, so he can go back and listen anytime he wants.
Yes, and we know in large part thanks to Edward Snowden just how pervasive their surveillance apparatus really is, including any email you've ever sent. They can easily have access to that, as well as text messages and things like that. If you're not using Signal or Wire or Telegram secret chats, which are actually encrypted, then anything that you've ever sent out on the internet or through SMS or any phone call, any email, is easily read by the NSA. And they can undo it.
But Clapper told me that they don't spy on Americans.
Yeah,
he said so in front of Congress. You can't lie to Congress. That's a federal offense.
And what was the result of him lying to Congress?
Still waiting on that, actually.
I'm not surprised. I mean, Hillary Clinton got away with breaking all sorts of laws, and she was so technologically inept that she described wiping a hard drive as, taking a cloth to it every once in a while.
But didn't they take a hammer to it?
I don't know what they did to it.
I believe that they said.
Yeah, I gotta wonder, is that misdirection, though? Like, is she saying, "Oh, I'm an old grandma. I don't know how to use this," or does she actually not know how to use this?
It's up for debate.
And I will say, like, one of the upsides of having President Orange Clown is that we did not, in fact, end the world because Grandma does not know how to use a computer. She had said over and over that she considers hacking to be an act of war. And I personally, I'm not good at computers, but I personally can make it look like I am doing a thing from Russia and attempt, very poorly, to hack into an FBI computer.
Yeah.
And under her leadership, that may have led to World War III.
Well, she made it no secret that she wanted war with China. I think she stood on the debate stage at one point and essentially said that. But we still got David from New Mexico with us. David, are you still, you're making, what? Will you stop doing whatever it is that you're doing? Okay, thanks. So you were talking about revolution, and I agree with you. Peaceful revolution is the way to go.
Wait. I did not even say revolution.
You said revolt.
I said revolt, which is not the root for revolution.
Care to enlighten us on the etymology?
Well, I had checked myself and looked up revolt in one of the mainline dictionaries yesterday, and revolt does not. It can include violence, but it does not mandate violence, clearly there in the definition. And revolution, which I did not look up, which I will look up, clearly does indicate a military offensive, and I have not checked that, but I will when I get off the air to make sure that I'm not incorrect.
Earlier you were talking about words with conflicting definitions, and revolting is absolutely one of those. Revolting can mean, disgusting and unappealing, but it can also mean eliminating the power structures that
I certainly do not find revolting.
Yeah, see. That's why I tend to prefer revolution, because it doesn't. It has the issue of, it also means going around the sun or just
Mm-hmm.
revolving around a thing.
Well, the third definition on dictionary.com says to turn away in mental rebellion, utter disgust. So you just be disgusted and you're revolting.
Yes, and revolution, in the political sense of turning over one government and replacing it with another, can actually also be a completely peaceful revolution, changing a government. But I never did use the word revolution. But even if I did, there can be a non-violent revolution, which is what I'm would prescribe. But what I want to get to is what Peakless had said. What Peakless had said actually is supporting what I said. And earlier in your program, Peakless, you had described, your words were, revolt can be direct and violent or indirect. Or it can be simply things like slowing down following their orders, which is what I was proposing. That, and there's a million other things, literally, that can be done by all of the people in our country to revolt against the oppression that we're getting from our government. Which includes, even cops can and do regularly slow down their work when they want to revolt against their own commanders.
Well, slow down their work by, say, when they ask for your name, they say you have to ID for some reason, right? You go, well, and a jury is going to look at this like, oh, he was giving his name. You just go, well, the last letter of my first name is A. The middle letter of my first name is O. And they just start writing it down on a piece of paper because they can't say that you weren't giving them your name, but you're slowing them down a bit.
That does seem like an effective way of slowing them down.
Yes.
And that's exactly, now take that times a million, and we should all be doing that kind of thing in every different way that you can creatively think up, do it ourselves, and then proselytize to all your friends and even to the cops. When I encounter the cops, I actually try to enlist them in working against our own government, which is their employer.
Sure, but if I recall correctly, David, the catalyst of this entire discussion was you saying that we needed former military people to go take over U.S. military bases.
No, I didn't say that, and if you'd like to produce the recording, I'd be happy to listen to it.
I am almost certain that was how this entire conversation started.
I don't recall that, but I'll tell you one thing: we are definitely producing recordings. If you have a podcatcher, you can get the RSS and get yourself some Free Talk Live on your phone at any time you want.
You don't remember that, David, because we had this entire discussion about whether or not it was feasible or practical to even believe that former military members would actually side with the people, when my experience with most military veterans is that they are firmly on the side of the state, and if the president tells them to pull the trigger on America's citizens, they'll pull the trigger on America's citizens. You don't remember this conversation?
Well, I remember discussing that. I remember discussing it several times in the past, but not in the recent past, as in regarding my statement yesterday. But previous to that, by weeks and weeks, I remember saying things like that. And since you bring it up, I'll answer your question. My opinion on that is that the majority of our military is actually inclined to, if given an order to come against us, I think that they would not follow that order and be more inclined to go against the people giving the illegal order than they would be to go against their own people.
Well, I got to say, number one, I hope you're right. Number two, I think you probably are, and that's why the majority of them are in other countries, because they do a psychological evaluation while you're getting into the military. And I think, I do not know, I cannot point to a specific source saying this, but as far as I know, what they do once they've taken a psychological evaluation is they find out the people who would fire on their own citizens, those they can station here. The people who would not fire on their own fellow citizens, those they make sure to keep in Syria, Afghanistan, and everywhere else.
Interesting take. I don't know a lot of people who are former military. I mean, it's not like the libertarians who are former military go around advertising it, because they're not super proud of it. The libertarians I know who are former military absolutely would not have fired on America's citizens, right. But then you have people who would.
Yeah, now police are obviously a different case. I mean, they are beating up and jailing and killing stealing.
We could slow that
from
process down.
Americans every day, every single day.
And I think that's a good idea. Anything that we can do to slow them down decreases the number of people they're out there harassing.
File complaints.
That's true. Amen to that.
I mean, when they pull you over, just waste as much of their time as you can, because that means they're not out there aggressing against other peaceful people. It's Free Talk Live.
Bewildered paralegal Caitlin Levy says that after returning home from work today, it occurred to her that oddly at no point during her day was she harassed, leered at, or made to feel humiliated or physically threatened.
It's weird. Looking back on it, I suddenly realized that not one strange man made a creepy comment at me or an obscene gesture or a sleazy look for the whole day. How can that be?
The 29-year-old told reporters that even at points in her day when she is traditionally almost certain to be made uncomfortable by at least one or two leering male strangers, not a single such instance occurred.
I actually got to walk from the train to my office and never once catch some weirdo smiling at me or looking me up and down or slowing down his car to yell some shit out the window at me. I felt weirdly safe or something.
This is the Onion News Network.
The new 4th edition of Healing Our World, The Compassion of Libertarianism will take your understanding of liberty to a deeper level and has over 1,300 updated references, new cartoons, and a foreword by Dr. Ron Paul. With discounts for multiple book purchases, the 4th edition of Healing Our World is a great gift for the liberals, pragmatists, environmentalists, and Christians in your life who think libertarianism is cold-hearted. Get yours today at healing.freetalklive.com and use promo code FTL for a $5 discount. What if you want to hear the latest episode of Free Talk Live, but all you have is your phone, you forgot to download our archive, and you have no data connection? You can call our Listen line at 641-793-0191. That's a long-distance number, so you may incur charges. If not, listen as long as you want. 641-793-0191. The Free Talk Live Listen line, 641-793-0191.
A congressman recently revealed that legislation totaling 2,900 pages and involving more than $1 trillion was available to members of Congress for less than 48 hours to study and consider. That's over 60 pages of legislation per hour. Do you think anyone read the entire bill? I'm Jim Babka with DownsizeDC.org. Consider a proposal buried in a 3,200-page, $388 billion bill, which would have empowered committee chairmen or their agents to examine Americans' tax returns. When this horrible provision came to light, no one claimed to know how it got into the bill. One congressman questioned said, "I didn't write it, I didn't approve it, I wasn't even consulted." If your attorney represented you this way, he might be disbarred. But this is how Congress represents you every day. That's why DownsizeDC.org has created the Read the Bills Act. You can force Congress to read their bills before they pass them at DownsizeDC.org.
Tired of cancel culture? Sick of mega tech corporations holding an axe over your head? Join the LRN.FM Matrix chat server. It's self-hosted, so no one else can tell us what to do or say. Don't like the existing channels? You can make your own. You can even connect into some of our channels from other Matrix servers. It's federated. For the full LRN.FM Matrix experience, though, you should join our server via the step-by-step instructions at chat.lrn.fm. Chat.lrn.fm. Are you a cryptocurrency advocate? The Crypto Tip is the ideal outreach tool to help new people discover cryptocurrency. It's a printable business card-sized tip that you can give to service providers, preferably in addition to a good cash tip. When the server scans the QR code, it'll bring up an explanation of cryptocurrency, how to install a wallet, and allow them to claim the tip. If they don't claim the crypto, you get your tip refunded to you after a time period you specify. Plus, if they do claim the tip, you get an email alert. Create as many tips as you want at cryptotip.org. That's cryptotip.org.
Our Matrix server is about as free as internet chat can be. Join the existing rooms or create your own at chat.freetalklive.com.
It is Free Talk Live. Debut broadcast from the Ambusia studio. As far as I can tell, it's been going well. I'm going to have to look into the video streams later to see how it actually came out. I know there were some issues in the beginning, some changes I made to the audio that I identified earlier today during the test streams for whatever reason didn't save. So that's something I'm going to have to look into because I'm pretty sure I saved it afterward. But, you know, it's just audio was only coming into one side of the headsets for people or one sides of their speakers or whatever. So little minor issues like that. But all in all, seems to be working out fairly well. I say that not having listened to tonight's episode.
I definitely breathed a sigh of relief when we got our first caller. It's like, okay, that's working, which, you know, is the point of our show.
Well, that was the easy part. I mean, that's just setting up a remote connection to the... I mean, really what I want to do is create a VPN between here and the other studio so that I can have the desk set sitting here, and so that I can just connect to things within the studio like the Comrec stack, which is what's doing all of that, from here as though I'm sitting in the actual studio. And that's doable, it's achievable, but back burner because there were other things that were more important, like actually making sure we can broadcast from here before we go creating a VPN to make it easier.
You want to broadcast? Like some kind of radio show?
That's ideal.
Perish
right?
the thought.
So before
revolting.
Before we cut out to break, we were talking about ways to delay the state, ways to slow down the state's aggression against people, and just in general ways to make their lives harder. Now, we saw this in Keene with the meter maids, or the parking attendants, rather, who were having their job made more difficult by Robin Hooders who were going in front of the parking attendants and putting coins in people's meters so that they didn't expire and they couldn't write the ticket.
Which is just so brilliant, in my opinion. I mean,
it is, and it pissed off the city of Keene so much that they sued the Robin Hooders.
Oh, wow.
And lost.
Ha!
Yes, very
wasted
nice.
Massive amounts of tax money doing this. And I mean, obviously they were going to lose because they accused the Robin Hooders of robbing them of the revenue from those fines, right?
Mm-hmm.
That was what it was all about. Those nickels getting put in, those don't matter.
You robbed us because we didn't effectively rob those other people.
Yes, that was exactly it. And that was why they called themselves Robin Hooders.
I did some Robin Hooding in Providence, Rhode Island, and I was inspired by the Robin Hooders of Keene, Garrett Ian, and Ian Freeman. But I definitely slowed down the meter maids for some time. Like I've only went out there like 3 times, but I made parking. You were saved by the Robin Hood of Providence, and so I put them on people's cars when I was saving them. But I actually have video of a parking enforcer encouraging me to put money in the machine so that he wouldn't have to do his job. And then he invites me into a cafe and wanted to buy me a coffee. I was like, no, because he's working on my dime technically, so I don't want to be like wasting city resources and being part of that problem. But
yeah, but if you were having coffee with him, then he wasn't out there writing tickets.
Well, what ended up happening is that he went into like a private parking garage and smoked like a chain of cigarettes before he actually went back to work. So I slowed him down a little bit, which would have been probably equivalent to having that coffee. But
sounds like he didn't really want to do his job in the first place.
Oh, I don't think so.
A lot of them don't. A lot of people that are doing these jobs for the thugs don't actually want to be doing jobs for the thugs. Like, a lot of people don't want to be stealing and harassing other people because it's just not how civilization works.
If you're in Keene or you're in any area that has parking meters, and don't just look at your meter, look at the guy to the left of you and the right at you at least, and just see if they could use a quarter. Save them from that ticket. You're saving yourself, too, because you're not funding the city, the oppressors that are going to make it harder and harder for you. So maybe you'd be effective here and there.
Yeah, that's a great way to look out for each other.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's really hard to find things that an individual can do that will slow down this death machine that is the state on its various levels. And you were talking about filing a complaint?
Yeah, well, every time you file the complaint, well, guess what? They have to get off their regular duties. Specifically, the city lawyer is going to look at this and see if it's, or even the chief or anyone in the city that would deal with complaints here in, say, Keene. But in Pawtucket, Rhode Island is where I did this, and a lot of us were doing this. So every time we had any instance of a complaint, like rudeness or just generally, the cops broke the law, whatever. We would file the complaint, but there were so many complaints being filed, it slowed down the city lawyer. So he couldn't deal with all the city's business. He had to deal with that. And they were going to hire a part-time lawyer there. And the city the city council didn't want to spend the money. But, which is great. So, like, it's slowing everything down. And it delayed a lot of things. Maybe, ticked off a few people.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that just sort of popped in my head is, like, how many times have I watched them turn on the lights to go through a red light for no reason?
Oh, sure.
Like, we have to do this, they don't have to do this. I mean, that is just one example of something you could file a complaint over.
Here in Keene, the fire department there at Central Square is notorious for going through the roundabout in the entirely wrong direction. I mean,
Yes.
they just stop traffic on all sides, and they just cut through the roundabout going the opposite direction that everyone else would be traveling. Everyone else travels through the roundabout counterclockwise. The fire department, they just throw on that siren and go clockwise. Now, it's assumed that this is something that's important, but still, it's a huge danger to people. Not to mention, I work right there on Main Street. I see cops here in Keene all the time flipping on their sirens and roaring down Main Street at 50 miles per hour. Keene is filled with pedestrians. I can't believe a cop hasn't killed a pedestrian yet.
Well,
so all kinds of complaints can be filed here.
Yes.
Right? It's important for the people that are, sitting at home to remember you can do something. Like, the whole system is set up to make us think that we are this tiny, insignificant, powerless thing when we're not. And at the very least, the next time you see them misbehaving and obviously, putting people in danger and doing what they shouldn't be doing, give a thought to filing a complaint. I know it's time out of your day and it's filling out paperwork, but it really does make them start to grind to a halt.
What's really beautiful about it, too, is you can set up an email anonymous that has no attachment to you, and you can file complaints anonymously and have them responded to your anonymous email. So you can completely erase yourself from the equation. Set it up and just file complaints. I prefer to go in person. It's more personal to, if especially the level of the complaint. I really want to make sure that I'm making a point. I'm going to record myself doing it, so I have a record of it, and then hold their feet to the fire.
There's also the reality that a lot of these complaints can become lawsuits.
Right.
And in which case, if you win those, you waste even more of the city's resources by first having to take them to court, and they have to go to court to fight you about it, but then you get their money.
Founded complaints, right? The ones that they investigate themselves and they're founded. Those are drops in the bag. Like, you can go and file a lawsuit right after that. Typically, you're going to win because they found that cop did the wrong thing.
Well, and it's important to point out that, like, part of what made the USSR go absolutely down the drain is that no one would ever raise any kind of fuss when all of this nonsense was going on. So people would see them behaving abominably and do nothing for the cause. For the cause, I will be silent. I will watch you do terrible things, and what happens then? They do a more terrible thing and a more terrible thing.
Well, I don't know what you can really do to stop one of these situations like what happened with George Floyd. I don't know what an average citizen can actually do to have prevented that.
Well, here's one thing. How about the, million people in that city that wanted this to stop? How about every one of you files a complaint so that they have to go through 1 million complaints? How long would you keep those cops off the street, keep them out of the probability of choking people to death with these stupid tactics because you just filed the complaint?
Lengthy. Make it lengthy. Because they're going to have to read a lot of words and analyze a lot of things.
Good suggestions. I mean, the more of the state's resources that we tie up, the less damage they're able to do abroad and here at home. Unfortunately, we're tying up a vast amount of their considerable resources with the whole Crypto 6 thing. If you want to learn about that, go to thecrypto6.com. All the information is there, but it's ultimately the reason why Free Talk Live is being broadcast from here tonight rather than the LRN studio. And I was talking this over with the captain. I was like, well, we shouldn't call that the Free Talk Live studio anymore because there are now multiple Free Talk Live studios, and I think it will get confusing.
Mm-hmm.
But all of this is a result of essentially tying up the state's resources by advocating for the use of a currency that the state cannot control so that we can defund them, so that they can't pay for their police, their militarization, their bombs, their wars.
Well, they want to convince us that we're powerless, but that has always been an illusion.
And Free Talk Live is not just here and elsewhere in Keene. It's everywhere. It's in everyone's home. You can call in.
A newly recruited search and rescue officer, Marshall Hunter was resigned to a life of rescuing wayward spacefarers and derelict satellites. But when a billionaire couple goes missing, his own ship is disabled during the rescue. With communication satellites suddenly failing and lunar mineral shipments disappearing in transit, the crew suspects it's more than a coincidence, and Hunter must choose between salvation and sacrifice to save his crewmates and their civilian charges. Frontier by Patrick Childs and BingBooks.com.